Very good. Thank you. Welcome to the January 15th meeting of the Sherborn Board of Selectmen. We'll start by asking our town administrator to please read through the agenda, and there will be a couple of items that we'll ask to have added to the agenda. David?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, we'll vote to approve or amend the agenda and add topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance. I recommend an amendment for reconsideration of Sherborn Inn alcohol license and Sherborn out alcohol license. And then a public comment period of 10 minutes. And then under FY16 budget review, we'll have the new building commissioner come in to talk about his budget. And then an update on the MBTA purchase of CS6 rail line through Sherborn. And then the FY15 annual town meeting warrant will have several articles to go through, including the planning board articles, citizen petition articles, and governance task force articles. Under FY16 capital budget, consideration of requests, there's a library article, and the trustees and library director are here. Then consider intermunicipal agreement for regional school capital borrowing. And then consideration of acceptance of Leland Farms trustee appointing authority from the Sherborn Community Housing Corporation. And then go to routine business with town administrator reports, selectmen reports, set the next meeting date, and sign a warrant. And then adjourn to executive session, not to return to an open session. And that the executive session is to discuss possible litigation as it pertains to Board of Health agent and pertains to litigation with the Board of Health agent and litigation with integrated paper.
Mr. Duransis.
I'd like to suggest two additional amendments. I concur with the Sherborn Inn amendment, so I guess three. I'll make that motion that he referenced, but I also would like to propose a moment of silence for David Sorter and wonder if I could read a few excerpts from his obituary.
You have a second on that?
I second that, yes.
Great. All in favor? Aye. Why don't we start?
Well, I have a third one, too.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought we should
Yeah,
do your third. Sorry.
Which is, I want to give a brief report on the awards ceremony from the Business Association. David attended, but I also was there.
You want to do that during selectmen reports?
Sure.
Okay, that'd be good to cover that, and that way we don't have to revote the amendments.
Good.
Paul, should we start, I think, maybe with the moment of silence and ask you to, after that, to read the obituary? So we'll pause for a moment of silence in honor of Dave Sorter, who passed away, a longtime resident of Sherborn and beneficiary to the town. Okay. Paul, if you don't mind reading.
This is from the obituary. Dr. David Charles Sorter of Sherborn passed away on Tuesday, January 13, 2015, at his home with his loving family by his side. He was 79 years old. With a DMD degree in oral surgical, well, let me start that again. DMD with Oral Surgical Associates of Framingham, Mass. For 35 years. The Sherborn Inn owner and creator for 26 years. A resident and a leader of the Sherborn community for over 50 years. A loving father for 58 years. And soulmate to Rosemary Sorter for 59 years. David cherished his friendships with his many great and wonderful friends, a compassionate and generous man. He was loved by all who knew him. He loved his country and his service to the United States Navy as a lieutenant. He trained for oral surgery at Tufts Dental in 1963. He stopped pulling teeth and performing late-night fractures in 2000. By that time, he had established the Sherborn Inn, so there would be a place for all to celebrate a life event or just to stop in and see a neighbor. The inn was his crowning achievement, what he truly enjoyed in life, being amongst people to share his warmth, friendliness, and humor. His belief about life was that we are here to help each other and to contribute to society. Throughout his life, he developed many more skills, simple to the complex, from ping pong, felling trees, flag raising, to a piano player, pilot, and navigator. His interests ran wide and passions deep, always willing to take the lead and commit to a task, especially to his beloved community of Sherborn. Perhaps his greatest joy, though, was his marriage to Rosemary. Discovering each other at Colby College, they were truly in love and went on to create a life together that was full and rich and complete. For his children, they were all given opportunities to enjoy life to the fullest. One of Mr. Soder's life credos was Carpe Diem. He indeed sees every day, while we all benefited from his many wonderful achievements of his life. A funeral service will be held in the Pilgrim Church, 25 South Main Street, Sherborn, Mass., on Saturday, January 17th at 11 a.m. Relatives and friends especially invited.
Thanks, Paul. Okay. Ready to go on to the next item?
Sure, his was
Okay.
a life well lived, that's for sure.
Certainly was. 6:15, well, we're a little bit early. I guess we have public comment first. Did anybody sign up for public comment?
Yes, Elliot
Okay,
Taylor.
Great, Elliot Taylor. Thank you, Elliot. Floor is yours.
I'm again complaining about the lights shining on my house from the Sherborn Inn and Rose's Garage. No one in Sherborn, no one anywhere should have to put up with what I've put up with. And I'm asking that the Board of Selectmen pull back all of the permits for the Sherborn Inn and Rose's Garage. This is outrageous. I've complained about this many times. I don't know if any of you have given me the courtesy of going down in my backyard and seeing these damn lights from Rose's Garage that shine on my house and backyard and barn, and also look across the street at the Sherborn Inn. I counted 8 lights shining on my house from the Sherborn Inn. I've asked that little shades be put over these lights for years, and tonight they shine on. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It probably won't do any good, but that's the way it is. I think I'm being bullied, and so much for that.
Okay, thank you. We now have the budget review for the building commissioner, Mr. Zamel. And David, are you going to work through this?
Yeah, this is for the building commissioner's budget. It's a small budget that oversees our wiring inspector and electric inspector, and plumbing and gas inspector. And this is our new building commissioner, Felix Zemmel. And he might want to introduce himself and then walk us through any changes in the budget. It's basically flat from what it was from the FY15 appropriation.
Thank you very much, members of the board, and David, Diane. In front of you is a narrative that I've put together for the budget request. I don't know if the request was included in your packets or not. If not, I have a copy that I can circulate. Overall, I'm requesting a increase of 2.5% over the FY15 budget. The majority of the line items that are being requested only have 1.5%. which was the guideline that the town had requested. Where it was slightly greater increases were for the personal services, total was 1.7% increase. That was as a result of a requested increase of $170 for the on-call building inspector, which was just to make it make the line item more realistic. I'm requesting a total of $575 to cover the on-call building inspector, who, as of this week, has been appointed as Walter Avalone, my predecessor. And he will be covering if I'm on vacation or any emergencies that come up where I'm not available, and he's paid hourly for that. That's the same that we have for the wiring inspector and the plumbing inspector. And this year, I decided to do something a little different with the budget. Instead of having separate sheets for wiring, for plumbing, and for building, I tried to put together a departmental budget so that when people are looking at the budget document, it is a lot clearer that we're all under one department and how everything is broken up. So for certain line items, I combined, like for the office supplies line item, I combined building, plumbing, and wiring into a departmental line item for office supplies. And I'm requesting $1,200. That looks like it's a large increase from the FY15 appropriation. When you do the numbers, it's a 71% increase, which equals about a $500 increase. But looking at the historic trends for that line item between all of the different sections, building, plumbing, wiring, we've historically gone well over the appropriated amount. So what I'm trying to do is request a realistic number. If you look at FY11, it was 1203, FY13, it was 1205, FY14 was 966, and I know as of right now in FY15, we are well over the $700 that was appropriated. So this request is to just make it a realistic number instead of having to utilize the Municipal Relief Act later on in the year, or trying to juggle somehow. I'm not requesting any money for contractual services, and then for training, dues, and travel, I'm only requesting the 1.5% increase. And for training and dues, I'm keeping the plumbing, building, and wiring separate, just so that we can monitor the individual training requirements for each of those. But then for travel, I'm requesting a pooled amount, because historically, plumbing and wiring don't request mileage reimbursements, but in case they do, so it'll all come out of one pool, and that way it's not looking like building is going over budget. I'm requesting it to all be as one departmental budget, and I'm also requesting a $100 towards new equipment for the department if we need it, inspectional equipment. If the wiring inspector or plumbing inspector or myself needs to get new voltage testers or new gas gauges or new tape measures, stuff like that, it's giving us $100 to play with so that we can keep up to date with our equipment. So overall, my budget request is 2.5% over last year. But I hope this narrative helps in understanding where my request is coming from, and hopefully supporting that.
Okay,
I just want,
further, David?
yeah, I just wanted to note that on your columns, the FY 2016 request is what ties out to the departmental request.
Yeah.
And then the other column, the Board of Selectmen TA recommendation, is what my working column that I've been working on.
So do you
we still-
support this request, because you had indicated there would be no increase before
think we-
Felix talked?
We had talked a little bit, and we still are talking, but yeah, I would expect it to be a little less than this.
Okay.
But not what you have in this column, because that last column is more a working draft, is what you're saying? You're still figuring that out,
I
right?
still want to get to the 1.5%.
Yeah, no. Welcome aboard.
Thank you
I
very
hear
much.
good things about your professionalism and your diligence, so that's great. And I like that you've taken a good, close look at the budget. It isn't, we're a $25 million budget. This isn't going to break the bank, but every dollar counts, so that's why, David's grinding you down a little bit perhaps, and so, and we don't know where we're at overall on the selectmen's
That's-
budgets anyway,
yeah.
so that's really the key to the whole smash.
And
Ultimately.
as I said, I'm happy to stay with the 1.5% for office supplies, but just going by historical numbers.
It's
we've
not
traditionally gone-
realistic, yeah, yeah.
So, and that's the big driver for the increase.
Yeah.
Because that's the largest line item increase out of all of the line item increases. So it's just to try to be more realistic as to
So what, office supplies are what? Paper, pens, that kind of stuff? or-
paper, pens, racks. Each department buys its own computer software, so we're keeping up to date with computer software, keeping up to date with forms, stuff like that. One of the largest expenditures in our office supplies budget is when we have to purchase new gas and plumbing books and electrical permit books, because we have to get the NCR copies of those so that we have a copy and the applicant has a copy. We do the same thing with building. I'm trying to figure out efficiencies to reduce that, but for the time being, I'm still keeping the old system until I can figure out a new way to do it.
Okay. Mr. Durancis.
Well, I'm happy to see that the building department generates a fair amount of revenue to the town, and I'm looking at the 2014 amount, which was, I guess, 20% higher than the 2013 amount. Your department generates in fees and revenues to this community much more than you're asking for a budget. Just using 2014, we're in fiscal 2015 now, but using last year's numbers, you were at, rounding off to like 112,000, and your budget that you're seeking is 74,000. So I would expect, given the overall economy, that things will be even better in terms of revenue generation from your department this year
So
than last year.
I'm hoping that's going to be the case for the fiscal year. I know for the calendar year, we were down a little bit, but not by much. The number of permits just decreased across the board. But I'm expecting that to pick up as the weather gets better, so that by the end of the fiscal year, it will be about where we were last year, if not better.
So because of that surplus there, and because of how important your function is to the community, I think I can support this fairly modest increase in your budget. Did you have any objection to it?
No, it's still in my head. I don't know how many of these supplies and stuff that we might be able to get in the current year, as we talk, because he's only been here a month, so we may be able to get some of that stuff in the current year budget as opposed to this one, but
Okay. All right, anything more from anyone?
No, I mean, I share the same sentiments as Paul. It's just that I'm holding back until we see the overall selectmen's budgets to be sure we're not going way over on things, and that's still in play. But I agree supporting your efforts, and, you got to have the meter readers and stuff like that you need to do your job. So,
Yeah, and I'm likewise.
yeah.
But I would add to what I said before, welcome
Thank you.
to
very
Sherborn.
much. Thank you.
It's a really important function, and many times it's a thankless function. But your efforts make our buildings safe, and all our residents benefit from having safe buildings and safe additions. So thank you for helping us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
No,
Okay.
Felix, good job.
All right, we're on to the next item, which is an update on the MBTA purchase of the CSX rail line through Sherborn. This is just an informational update, and it's Gino and David will address this, if that's okay. Thanks, Gino. Town Planner Gino Carlucci. and David Williams, our town administrator.
We were requested recently to give an update on the CSX rail purchase. It was $23 million for the line down to Foxborough. And Gino you're the swamp chair? Was that, okay. So he received information on it as well as us. And when I called around, Foxborough learned of the purchase just at the same time that we did, which was mid-October. So it kind of caught a lot of communities by surprise. And there are only 2 studies out there that are several years old that I've seen, and we don't know yet if there are plans for another study or not. So if you want to fill in what it means to Sherborn.
Yes. Yeah, the MBTA did a study in 2010 about offering daily commuter service from Gillette Stadium area, which now has game day service from Boston and Providence both. In 2011, there was another privately funded study done, sponsored by a law firm from Worcester and done by the consulting firm VHB, also of the line. The speculation then was that was, because it was kind of a secretive, Merrick O'Connell's position was that they wanted to increase their name recognition, and they were mostly a Worcester firm, and they wanted to increase their name recognition around that area. But speculation was that it had to do with the proposed Foxborough Casino at that time. Then it kind of died down, and the next thing you knew, 3 years go by, and in June of last year, 2014, the MBTA board voted to purchase that line. Nobody knew anything about it until October, when it was announced. As far as the impacts on Sherborn, and this is just my own thinking here, not from any sources of information, but the first impact that's likely to be is that part of the purchase is a commitment by the MBTA to fix the tracks in order to increase the train speed from roughly 20 to 40 miles an hour. So what that might mean for Sherborn is 2 positive and negative things. One is if the trains go by faster, the traffic impact could be reduced. At the same time, we got faster trains going through, and we may need improved crossing warning systems. The second thing is that that 2011 privately funded study had proposed game day service from Worcester using that line. So I haven't heard that mentioned so far on this, but it kind of makes sense that the purchase for or to initiate the Foxborough service, they only needed that short distance between Foxborough and Walpole to connect to the Franklin line, but they bought the whole thing, which may have been a condition of CSX to sell, that they had to buy all or nothing. So I wouldn't be surprised to see game day service be proposed from Worcester. Maybe not until they fix the tracks. And I don't know what the timetable would be on that, but that would probably be the first thing. In the future, long distance future, the purchase does offer the opportunity for MBTA to connect 3 lines that go into Boston now: the Worcester-Framingham line, the Providence line, and the Franklin line. So if passenger service were provided on this line, and again, the New Bedford Fall River service has been long planned and hasn't happened, and that, I would think that would be a much higher priority, and that's still years away. But it could mean service that from Sherborn, if there were a stop in Sherborn, you could get to Worcester, Boston, or Providence by transferring at one of these other 3 lines. So long-term, there could be some benefits. And that's about all I have to say.
Have some
I
comments?
just have one clarifying question, Paul. I don't think anybody said exactly what it was they purchased, and it might be helpful to people who are listening
Oh,
to this
I'm sorry.
to know exactly what was purchased.
They purchased what's known as the Framingham secondary line, which runs from Framingham down to Mansfield. It's a 22-mile stretch.
Thanks. Mr. Durancis.
a couple of concerns. If we have trains going through Sherborn at 40 miles an hour, there's more than track work that needs to be done. I'm quite concerned about the crossings at the intersections. We have crossings that are ungated, if you will, and you can't have trains going at 40 miles an hour through ungated intersections like that. The streets are too heavily trafficked. And certainly the intersection with South Main or North Main Street, to have trains going through there without elaborate new gates and warnings and all kinds of things is an inherent danger. So I can see impacts not just in the center of town on the main roads, but on side streets where the tracks cross, where tracks are crossing the street. The other impact I see is that the current railroad right-of-way is not fenced. Now, where the MBTA runs trains, they put fences in there so that dogs don't go in there, kids don't go in there, people aren't riding their bikes in there. And in fact, there are sections of track in Sherborn where people are walking on the tracks and using them as pathways. And suddenly, if you have trains going by at that speed, it becomes a safety concern. There needs to be fencing along the tracks. The amount of noise would increase. As part of the minutes of the Department of Transportation meeting, they are saying that the trains have to run faster because they're going to be running both freight trains and MBTA trains, so they have to coordinate them, and if they're working faster, then they can get one train out of the way before the next train goes. Well, that means more traffic on these tracks than there was before. So right now, we're all kind of used to the 7 o'clock train, whatever the time is in the morning.
4 trains a day.
Right now, there's 4 trains a day. We've kind of been used to that for a long time. But this is contemplating more than that, a much more active presence in the town. And that can be good if we're looking at economic opportunities and we want to have a train station and we can figure out a place to put parking and all of that kind of stuff, you know, maybe there's an economic opportunity there. But on the other hand, these tracks don't run through commercial and industrial areas. They're running through residential areas. And some of the trains aren't too far from some houses. And that's going to be a quality of life issue for some of our residents. If they start having trains zipping by back and forth with the whistles that go with it and the noise and the smoke and all of that stuff. So I know that other communities have been not happy with this for a couple of reasons. First, it was done fairly secretly. Number two, usually there is consultation with affected communities, and there was none here. Thirdly, the MBTA is basically running on deficit, and yet here's a huge chunk of money that's being spent on this, which might lead to fare increases and all kinds of other things, generally system-wide. The other towns have tried to figure out what do about this, and one by one, they've been opposing it and have reached out to their legislators and asked their legislators to see if anything could be done. And I believe Senator Timilty in Walpole has filed a bill to require more procedures in place before some of these events take place. So I don't know whether we want to take a position on this or want to learn more about it, or whether we want to consult with our legislators a little bit about this to see what they have to say on this. So I think where I would recommend that we go is that we ask for a meeting, A, with the MBTA, and B, with our legislators, have them all come in and kind of explain to us what is the MBTA trying to do, and what do our legislators think about it, and what's their recommendation. So I would suggest we try to invite them all here. I know that they've been responsive to requests from other communities, and they've gone and put I think quite a presentation on in Walpole. Supposedly it was a huge crowd there that got to be a yelling match, I guess. Some people were pretty angry at the state folks.
And that goes back to that 2011 study. There was a huge uprising in Walpole, and Senator Timilty was opposed to what was proposed even back then. So, I mean, it's not a surprise that they're still opposed, and that now that it's actually happening, that at the time it was only a concept by a privately funded study. Now it's a reality.
Well, what do you think of the idea of a little bit more investigation by asking the MBTA to put on basically the same presentation it's put on for other communities, and at least give us an opportunity to ask them, specifically, what are they planning to do with Sherborn, the tracks in Sherborn?
Yeah, I think that's great. Just one quick question, Gino. They didn't acquire the Framingham station. It was just the secondary line, correct?
Correct.
So CSX still retains the station. I'll just say one other,
They own the station. The
MBTA owns the station.
Framingham Station, they use it for,
They previously purchased that
Oh,
other
okay.
line from Worcester to Boston.
Okay. Well, all I'm getting at is, in addition to some of the issues you described for residents who abut I abut the old rail line that stops at Whitney Street Bridge and turns into a rail trail that we acquired a few years back. But in any event, this past summer, they came through. They have 30-foot right-of-way each side of the track, and they came through with this machine right out of a James Bond movie. It was incredible. I came in, and it took 6-inch diameter trees, cut them down like twigs, picked them up, and chipped them away, and just, cleared the whole side. So a lot of the vegetation that people may be currently enjoying, it wouldn't surprise me if they see that damaged. And we were able to get them to stop what they were doing, because the guy just comes in and just goes out and grabs everything he can reach, and he was requested to stop doing that.
Okay, so that sounds like there's some follow-up, David, for that? Great, thank you. I guess there's questions, Elliot?
Some comments.
Okay.
I've been watching trains go through Sherborn for 78 years,
that's all.
ever since I was big enough to look out the window. You should have been here during World War II. They were running trains through here as quickly as they could, and when one would leave Framingham, it'd clear Medfield. There'd be a train in Medfield waiting to come up to Framingham, and it was real go-go, and there were steam engines in those days, and a lot of soot and noise from that. If we could get crossing gates at all of our crossings, and maybe we could get them not to whistle, the noise would not be a problem in any way. But I see trains every day I leave for work about 7 o'clock, and that's when the 7-Eleven comes up. Comes up at 7 in the morning, it comes back at 11:30 at night. And I see a lot of cars coming across the crossing with the lights flashing.
I've seen that too.
In the old days, the lights came on when the train got to Farm Road and Hunting Lane. When the trains were coming so slow in the last, say, 5 or 6 years, they've got that down to about 400 feet. So when the train's 400 feet from the crossing, the lights come on. And as you say, if they're going to start running 40-mile-an-hour trains, why, they've got to go back to Hunting Lane and Farm Road to trigger the lights. But if we can get crossing gates, they won't have to whistle and keep them rolling. But as for passengers service, where are you going to park the cars that will want to use this? Powder House Lane, and they'll all come under my bedroom window. So,
The lights on.
Yeah, but they're shining lights at you.
well, tooting their horns probably, having the guy in front hurry up and get out of the way. So anyway, that's the concern. I believe the MBTA right now owns the tracks from Worcester to Boston, and I believe Boston to Providence now.
I think those are part of the Northeast Corridor that Amtrak owns.
Okay, Amtrak, okay, MBTA, Amtrak, same,
Yeah.
different name, but same deal.
I don't want to cut you off, Elliot, but we got a really long agenda, and I think we're going to do more investigation on
Also, we
this.
have the Whitney Street line.
It's the one Peter just talked about,
That
yeah.
comes up to the bridge, and I was wondering if that's going to go to the MBTA, or that's still going to stay CSX. Okay, I've made my points.
Okay, thanks, Elliot. So now we have, we're going into the town meeting warrant articles, and the first article we have to discuss, Gino's still up here, these would be the planning board articles, and Gino, if you want to walk us through those, I guess, or David, whoever's decided to do it. Gino, good, thank you.
Yeah, the planning board is sponsoring in conjunction with the ZBA one zoning article, and it would change the definition, not really the definition, but the allowed uses for a restaurant to allow outdoor entertainment. Of course, the main reason for this is right now the permitting process for the annual Brewfest is sort of a gray area, the way it's been handled, so this kind of clarifies that. It comes with strong conditions to mitigate the impact of that in terms of noise, light, and traffic on nearby residences. So that's a part of the definition of allowing the outdoor entertainment. So that's the only zoning article being proposed by the planning board. The one other item being proposed by the planning board, which would fall under the annual article to authorize and create revolving funds every year, is the planning board would like to have a tree revolving fund included in that article this year for instances when there's a scenic road application and a tree or trees are being removed, and there's not really a good place to replace them on the site. So that would give the planning board the ability to ask the applicant to make a contribution to that revolving fund to pay for tree planting elsewhere. So those are the only two articles that the planning board.
So the articles that we've been thinking were coming from the planning board are not. That one of them was a lot width article.
Right.
You're not
The
withdrawing
planning board
it?
voted to withdraw that proposal, so that would not go forward.
And then there was a discussion about allowing commercial kennels in the town, which I'm opposed to, and I think a lot of people are opposed to.
Yeah, that
That
never...
was on our list, and it's not on our list now, so I hope the planning board has
That was
withdrawn
never a
that.
planning board article. It was, I was just asked to draft up something for consideration, which I did, passed it on. But the planning board was never interested or a sponsor of that article.
Great.
Good. Any questions?
No, just
here?
the revolving fund, so we would do that as part of the revolving fund article, basically, and it's just another item listed on the list, sorry. Okay, that's simple.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a generic article to create
Yes.
revolving funds for the upcoming year, and then when we do the motion, we have
Yeah,
like
this
a
in there.
whole list.
Yep.
We just need to add one more,
Gotcha.
but it makes sense to have that revolving
Yeah.
fund.
So we have any public comments on this, and Mr. Taylor has some
Yes.
comments?
On the outdoor entertainment, we have a bylaw that says there will be no outdoor entertainment. And the zoning board, in their stupidity over the past 4 years, have just waived that requirement and allowed this to happen over my objections. And if it wasn't for that article, there probably wouldn't be a Sherborn Inn. And the Sherborn Inn was, at the same time they voted to allow the Sherborn Inn, they also voted there'd be no outdoor entertainment, and the town meeting was assured there'd be no outdoor entertainment until Ed Rose decided he had a better idea. And it has happened the last, I guess, 4 years now, I'm running out of fingers. But we've lived with it very nicely for many years, no outdoor entertainment. Now this proposal is saying they can have outdoor entertainment twice. Well, what do you say to the third party that comes in? Oh, well, nonprofit. There are thousands of nonprofit organizations, and we don't need another zoning for outdoor entertainment. We have one that says there'll be no outdoor entertainment, and let's stick with no outdoor entertainment, period.
All right, thank you. Gina, can you explain what mechanical entertainment is?
That has been in the bylaw for a long time. I've always assumed it to be like amplifiers, radio.
Okay, so mechanical in a pretty loose sense like that, electronic or
Yeah,
Mechanical
I
bull.
don't know what else it would be.
mechanical bull also.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
If you want it inside, so I can't hear it, across the street, go for it, but not outside with, also, there's 130-seat minimum, a maximum for the Sherborn Inn.
All right, so we
And now
took,
you've got hundreds of people all over the place with nice little portable potty stalls all over the place. And isn't this what we want in our town?
okay, so we took your comment, Elliot. Does anybody else have any comments?
Well, I look forward to hearing the later part of the agenda and Selectmen's reports when Paul describes the Sherborn Business Association grants to the various community organizations.
Okay. Do we want to take a vote on these tonight?
I'm happy to, yeah.
Okay.
well, I think if the planning board wants to put these on the warrant, I'm willing to
I support.
vote to put them on the warrant. That's different from deciding the
Support.
details of the support. For example, the revolving fund, you might be looking for $1 million, and we may think 20,000 is right. So it's kind of premature to really take a position until we figure out
Right,
what
although
would work
I
and what's needed and all that kind of stuff.
think we could take a vote to put it on. I think on the revolving fund, they're not looking for money from the town, but rather to set up an account in which developer money could be placed and then later
Set an
spent.
annual limit by statute.
In terms of the amount that could be put in it, but it's not coming from the town, but I do get your point. Okay, so do we have a motion then to support putting the revolving fund and the restaurant article on the
So moved.
warrant?
Second.
Okay, any further?
Just under discussion, there's a considerable debate among municipal lawyers as to whether the planning board has an absolute right to put an article on the warrant without a Board of Selectmen vote, because the Zoning Enabling Act says that the planning board shall, I'm trying to think of the exact words, but shall have the right to present amendments to the zoning bylaw. And some feel, well, that means present it to the Board of Selectmen for action. Some say, no, they have that right. So rather than trying to draw fine lines about who or what has that power, if the planning board, my position is, if the planning board wants an article, I'm going to support that and let the voters decide.
Okay.
10 signatures on a...
Excuse me.
For anyone.
Do we have a vote of the board on that? We have a motion and a second. Further discussion, all in favor? Aye, okay. I want to go back to an item we missed before, which was the Sherborn Inn liquor license amendment request. This was I guess, a technical question, and I don't know if anybody's here to present what it is they're looking for. Yeah, oh, thank you, great.
I'm Jen Ziskin, and hopefully going to assume ownership of the Sherborn Inn. Also, just want to say I'm really saddened to hear about Dr. Sorter. That is, I had not heard the news yet, so our intentions, we were really hoping to do this before he passed away, just to really put him at peace, too, and so that's very sad. But also just that we want to really get this done and carry on his legacy, too. And I do appreciate you putting this on the agenda last minute. There's just a few kind of technical details that they wanted added. One that needed to be added to Form 43, and then everything is listed in the cover letter that we presented to you with this.
Okay.
And, basically little more of like they wanted a description, a more detailed description of the inn, the way it was structured, how many floors, square footage.
You all seen this?
Yes.
Okay.
And a few other items that that were missing from, they wanted consistency throughout the applications.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to support it because we want to see the Sherborn Inn flourishing, and we understand there are some details. I can't resist the temptation, though, to say that we kind of told you so when you came in here, and the description of the premises conflicted with what we had on our books, and we tried to give you a heads up on that just to avoid this kind of thing. But I'm glad that it's being straightened
I'm glad you
up.
brought it up, actually. I wanted you to say it.
I wasn't trying to give you a hard time. I was trying to make this thing work,
Yes.
and yet here we are back with it. I have one little technical question, I guess, for Jeannie Guthrie, if she's around.
I'm here.
Because this is reconsideration of an item that was voted at a hearing, do we need to reopen the public hearing and notify abutters?
Investigator Doyle said that you wouldn't even have to sign this in a meeting, but we thought it would be best to bring it up at a meeting, so you do not have to reopen it. It's just for reconsideration. It just goes back to the ABCC for them to take everything that the Ziskins have put together.
All right, well, but again, I'm asking only so that they don't bounce it back. They want a motion to reconsider first, and then a motion to approve the amended documents?
There is a checkbox on Form 43 that is in the corner. The Form 43.
On the front page?
Right here, Gene.
Up
Yes.
here?
Sorry, Dan.
It's
Top
up
right?
here.
It's not checked.
She's checking it.
Give me my pen back.
I'm sorry, I'm too much of a lawyer.
These were updated versions that Jen
Did
came
it check
in.
upside down? Good
Okay,
job.
there we go.
So they are checked. This is, you just need to sign it in these
Okay.
two places, and then they'll be hand-delivered to the ABCC.
But again, I'm asking for the form of the motion. So I want to make a motion. Is the motion to reconsider and to approve an amended form?
The motion is to send the Form 43 and the application back to the ABCC for reconsideration by the ABCC.
Okay, so can I make that motion
Yes.
as she just stated it?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. And it's not a public hearing. Elliot, I'll note your objection for the record because I think you were going to object, but we got to keep the
No
schedule
outdoor
moving.
entertainment, get your goddamn lights off my house.
Okay, so we'll move on to citizen petitions.
And
Thank you.
welcome to Sherborn.
Actually, let's sign this.
Timing is everything.
Yes, he's been here all...
Yes, so, sure, Steve. What's the question?
I am confused. There seems to be a warrant
All the same.
notice of intent for kennels, but the selectmen are stating they're not sponsoring it, and the planning board is stating they're not sponsoring it. I'd like to know what the status of that.
It's gone.
That is official.
It's not on the list.
There were two kennel-related articles. One was copying the state law for commercial kennel into our own bylaw. The other article was to have some sort of kennel allowed by special permit.
And those didn't receive any sponsors?
No.
Well, the
So-
first one, I would be a sponsor of, because what it does is, state law says that you have to get a kennel license, which is in the form of like an animal license. It's like a dog license. If you have 3 or more dogs,
4 more.
4 or more dogs, you have to get a kennel license from the town clerk. And when an issue came up in town, the town clerk asked that that state law requirement be codified locally here so that she would know exactly what has to be done by her office.
And that's why I thought we were going to have that on our warrant as a selectman item, but for whatever reason, it did come off.
No,
it's
still on the list.
That one's on there. Okay, so just the zoning one came off.
Just the
The
one
zoning one.
regarding the
The
special
zoning
permit.
one's
Right.
The only one's
And how did
gone.
that one, where did that one come from? Just we thought it might be useful, somebody thought it might be useful?
We've been talking about it all year. We've
Yes.
we've
No,
carried
I
it on
know.
our list since
I know.
town clerk asked for it.
Town clerk asked for
Yes.
that one, okay. Gotcha.
So it's just a licensing article, not a zoning article, Steve.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay, we're on to the next item, which is a citizen's petition, Richard Giuliani, property owner, and the petition, the first signature is Sarah Brody, who's the sponsor, but I think there are other people here who are on that citizen's petition. There's Richard. Whoever's going to speak can sit down and speak into the microphone, please, and you can set that up in a
Over
way
here.
that the public can see it. So up here is probably the best.
Right there.
Yeah, in that corner. Yep.
Thank you.
And then if you speak into the microphone and introduce whoever's going to speak, and then we can go from there.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I just want to note that this is a citizen petition that arrived on January 5th, which is the day the warrant closed.
Okay,
it
so
arrived
it's
in
in
time.
the warrant.
Right.
Sorry.
That's
It's on. Good evening. My name is Richard Giuliani. This is Ronald Labradini. We're the property owners of 59 North Main Street. This is Sean Brennan of Finley Homes, and this is Peter Bemis, our engineer from Engineering Design Consultants out of Southborough, Massachusetts. And the 3 of us will be speaking this evening concerning this. I'm going to let Sean take it from here.
Good evening. We're here to propose 12 single-family unit on the old Peacedale Farm.
Which is 59 North Main Street.
Correct.
59 North
Or
Main
otherwise
Street.
known as the house with the hole in the roof.
The old,
Fallen house.
The former Peacedale Dairy Farm.
what we're doing is we're offering, we're putting up this proposed property for 12 units and offering 3 affordables to the town to be controlled through a lottery by the town. You want to, this is the existing conditions of the property
This is
right
the
now.
existing conditions, sorry. I don't know if you can hear me.
It's a little hard to see, maybe point to where the house is and so forth.
This is the existing house right here. This is the existing barn. There was a former barn here that's been torn down. There's a pump house and an old sort of stable or something that was out here. This is Conrail in the rear. There's an existing house here. I believe it was it's a blue colonial. It used to be, I think, the Ironworks or something or other in the town of Sherborn. The house over here is the stone one with the nice maroon shutters right up on the street there. I'm pretty sure this is obviously North Main Street. I'm pretty sure everybody knows where the house is, the house with the hole in the side. So this is existing conditions. None of this over here, you can see our wetlands line. This is all considered wetlands on this property here. So this is what is being proposed.
And all of this would be on a common driveway, like a townhouse-style development that's controlled by an association that would be set up.
Right.
So it would lessen the impact on the property.
Basically, there's 12 units. They're going to be 2 bedrooms. You need, according to, this is not what's typically is known as a 40B or a 40R. We're not doing that. We approached the town in an attempt to let the town have full control of what was going over, basically what was going to be developed here. We had some recommendations from the town that said that they thought it was a good spot for a 40B because of other incidents in town, I guess, that had been going on where other affordable sites had been shot down or not believed to be a good development site for those particular units. I don't know anything about that, but this is right downtown. It's about 750 feet, I'd say, away from Washington Street and North Main there, Route 16, Route 27. We have what we had proposed before for the site. Those were existing conditions. We won't get into that. But this is sort of an example. We're doing this in Wellesley right now. These are 3 put together. What we had planned for this site here was to separate them, so it gave it more of a village feel. We're doing this in downtown Wellesley. You can see 22 Pleasant Street. This is just as an example so you could see what they would look like. They're going to be high-end units, cedar clapboard and so forth, maybe some copper roofing and so forth. But each unit would be separate rather than combining these together. In a 40B scenario, you usually see them as at least duplexes, sometimes large buildings that have 0 setbacks because the state takes it over. We show on this plan a 60-foot setback that keeps in tail with what the current zoning is all the way up and down this street in this area. It's a 60-foot setback in the front with 30-foot setbacks in the side and the rear. So that's why we use this. According to 40B and 40R, which we're not doing, we'd rather team up with the town on this, we could put it right on the sidewalk. There's no setbacks. You'll notice we have a well here proposed, and I believe Peter has another one that shows the other well up here. I apologize, it's on that plan over there. I thought it was this one, I'm sorry. But there are 2 wells that fit in the site, no problem. And so each one of these, this footprint is approximately 1,600 square feet. You could either put a single garage or possibly small 2-car garage, but we're thinking 1 door on that. It's a 1,600 square foot footprint, and it's basically the units would be right around 1,800 to 2,000 square feet. This is obviously preliminary, so we don't have any architecturals or so forth on it. I don't know if, Peter, you have anything to add, or?
I think the important thing to stress here is this is a village. We're trying to create a village green. That center area would be all lawn. The idea, if you're familiar, in Medfield, there's a project where you've got a cluster of homes around a village green. This is the example that we thought we put forward when this idea was broached with us, was to try to give you that type of concept back. There are other setbacks that apparently you've used when you do an EA zone, where you have a greater setback to the front yard and a greater setback to the side yards. That would cause the village green that we've created in this plan to be reduced significantly. So we're very hopeful that the board would support this type of setback to the boundary versus the more condensed. I just think that it has a lot more feeling of openness to the units themselves and affords a yard for each of the units. Thank you. Thanks. And to just clarify what you're asking for, you're asking to have this property rezoned to an EA zone, and you're also asking, on the basis of this plan or whatever the final development plan that you're going to submit to the planning board would be, and you're also asking to have a language correction or language change to the EA article to clarify that you can do an affordable, 25% affordable development here. It's not only restricted to 55 and up.
Correct. And we are also looking for a variance as far as the 100-foot setback. The current bylaw states that you only need 50 feet of frontage with a 100-foot setback for the EA zoning, from my understanding. We have 397 feet of frontage, so we would like to, just to make it look more of a village, we could encompass all of this, we can fit this in there with the 100-foot setback and 60 around the side, but there is literally nobody that's up here. The house is, I think, about 20 feet off the street down here, and it doesn't even go back 60 feet. I'd say if it did, it was probably around 70 feet, the rear of that house. This house, you can see the distance that we're off of their property line. We're 70 feet from their property currently with this design. And also, just this is our current lot line here. In doing so with this, we are also proposing, and I'm not sure if you got a copy of the proposal. I don't know if that,
I think we got a plan here.
there should have been a plan there with a,
It came too late for me.
I'm sorry.
I need a couple of hours before the meeting just to communicate.
Well,
so-
definitely, yeah, I sent it before that.
You got the
We got the conceptual letter, yeah, we got the
Right.
conceptual letter, but not the plan.
All right, I can distribute that for you if you like.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine, that's great.
I have a couple of questions at some point.
Oh, yeah,
if I
we're
can.
going to definitely have questions, yeah. I'm just trying to get all the information out if we can. And
This little triangle here, all I was, just to finish, this little triangle here, this is the Marthason's current lot line. They're literally 3 feet off of our property. We were going to donate this to them right here as a possibility. We're still in discussion and negotiations with that, so they'd have more of a, whatever, conforming lot, say, so they can meet the current setbacks.
And Gino, in terms of the setback requirements, that would require another amendment to the EA zone, is that correct? Is that what you concluded?
Either a variance or another amendment to the EA zone.
Yeah, I think a
So-
variance is a better way to go because any change to the zoning bylaws is permanent, applies everywhere throughout the town and so on. But, I mean, that's, but I got a bunch of questions. if I could.
Yeah, then the variance, you do, I'm going to open it, Paul, I just wanted to finish that thought. So it would be either an article, which would mean you'd have to have a new article come in that incorporated that, and we'd have to vote to add it to the warrant, or it would be a variance that would require going to the Board of Appeals and having the Board of Appeals do a public hearing and vote to approve the variances in the interest of having a design like this instead of a more compressed design. Okay. Paul?
Great. So, was this to be ownership or rental?
Ownership, yes.
Have you done any economic analysis as to what the selling price would likely be
I'll let it.
For the market rate units or for the affordable
for
units?
the market rate units?
The market's showing anywhere from between 650 and 800.
And have you figured out what the tax impact would be on the town of Sherborn if we had 12 additional units at that valuation? In other words, after this project is built, what would be the tax revenues to the town compared to what are the tax revenues now?
Currently, well, I would assume it would be a benefit, but I don't have I do not have those numbers in front of me now.
I would suggest to you that's an important analysis to do.
Absolutely.
Just to clarify, Paul, you're looking for the difference between what they pay now in taxes and what taxes would be reaped on this property after they build
Yes.
12 houses? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm going to suppose that it's going up, but we want to
Oh,
know by
yeah.
how much.
Yes.
I'm not sure how much, but
But that leads,
There's probably 10 to 12x.
Right.
Whatever x is today, you would be able to multiply it by that.
be a benefit.
You can come up with a
Maybe.
number at some
Right,
point.
no, that wouldn't be a problem. This was just a preliminary.
there's some
I apologize.
deductions I would like you to focus on. One is, this is not to be an age-restricted
No,
development.
sir.
So to the extent that you are projecting school kids in here, when you do the analysis that I'm suggesting that you do, which is to figure out what would be the tax impact to the town of Sherborn, that you also assess in that analysis, how many school children would you project to be in this development, and how that would impact the town's budget. So hopefully, there's a net positive, that the revenues would exceed the impact on the community. But again, I'm just asking if you can do something like that, it would be very useful to know.
Absolutely, and just, this is relevant to your question, these units are going to be designed for actually, possibly, or mainly, our market scheme on this would be, and not elderly, but retired folks. We're going to have the first floor master on the first floor. It's close to town. It's walking distance to all the amenities and so forth. It's somebody that doesn't want to own 6 acres of land in Sherborn or 4 acres of land and just wants a single unit that's close to town to save on taxes and so forth, and it's a good location for that. We thought, after speaking with a couple individuals that are, on various boards with the town, that it was a good idea. So it's not going to be elderly, but they are going to have first floor masters and so forth for, it would probably, I would think it would be, marketed towards people that were either 50 or 55 like elderly is, or older.
No, I'm asking the question only because I think it would make a difference. This is going to go to town meeting, and the voters are going to look at it. It would make a big difference if this was going to generate a fair amount of new tax revenue for the town, or that it would end up being a deficit for the town because we'd have to spend so much for kids to be in the school system and so on. That's a piece that you ought to have for town meeting, and you ought to have for your presentations. Just a couple more questions.
Sure.
I didn't see anything in here for any kind of community facility where, by community, I mean that community. There's no central place where people could gather for, I don't know, exercise equipment or community meetings or activities or any kind of events for the residents of this. That's correct, right? There's nothing in here for any kind of development center for the residents?
No.
Well, if I can interject, given the size of it and the pure economics of it, and typically, I mean, this is being set up to hit, the demographics of people that have already lived here in Sherborn. Most of their children have gone, grown, moved away, and they're downsizing. So we're looking at that, and we're also possibly looking at people that are starting out, couples, younger couples that can possibly afford the units to move in there, haven't had children yet. So typically, you're looking at that age group, you're looking at two parties working and literally coming home to sleep with their head down. You're not looking at someone that's going to have, community gatherings. But part of this design is that this whole area, which will be the soil absorption system, the septic system, will also be a green area where we could put, some benches or some walking paths. I mean, we have a lot of reuse we can use for the old foundations. It's all fieldstone, and, the plan was to look at putting some walls in, just make it a nicer scape area. So if they wanted to sit down and enjoy the nature of it, they could. But as far as setting up a community gathering area, it's just the economics of it.
The other piece of that is, what about garages?
Oh, that's part of this
Part
system.
of that footprint.
You can fit, a 16-foot wide door in here. So they could have like a garage and a half. And it'll be at least 22 feet deep.
So each of these buildings are going to have an indoor garage?
Correct. Attached to the, actually part of the house. And part of doing this style in keeping with pretty much Sherborn, because it's not like you drive around and find duplexes everywhere like a lot of the other outlying areas is. It keeps it with that village feel. And the other part is, people moving in here, they're not going to have to, there's going to be an association that'll be set up to maintain their snow plowing, lawns, all of that whole, part of owning a single family with all the land, people that don't want to do that. But they don't have the attached living, it's detached.
So each of those little boxes is a standalone, single family.
Correct.
residents, that there aren't any duplexes.
No, we had another design for that, but we thought this was, it had a better look to it, and we thought these would be more desirable just for the, at least windows on all four sides as well. We thought this would sell better, and it would give it more of a village feeling. They're not very, they're fairly close in relation to each other, but we tried to space them, or Peter tried to space them best that he could to give it almost like a single-family standalone house feel.
And any internal sidewalks on this driveway?
That we haven't gotten into
Yeah.
yet, but I would assume there would be something around that drive, the circular drive there.
Yeah, just to kind of advocate for that, one of the selling points that you mentioned in your presentation was that people are within walking distance of the downtown area. So if they're within walking distance, you expect people to be walking, and if they're walking, it would be nice to have a safe place for them to walk.
I agree.
You mean as far as adding a sidewalk on, isn't there a sidewalk?
Yeah, no, not on, there is one on
You're saying
north-
inside the
interior to the development, yes, so that people can walk to the street.
Children on tricycles.
Well, I mean, part of this feel too is it's one way in and one way out. So most likely it'll be almost like a gated community where, it's the private people that live there. I mean, the total length of that circular driveway is 650 feet, give or take a foot.
Yeah, but every time I hear somebody say, it's just only going to be the residents, in fact, residents have friends, they have relatives, they also have delivery people, they have plumbers and electricians and FedEx and
Well, this is
maybe
all
even
going
the
to
school
be
bus.
gas.
I would assume there's going to be a sidewalk there. It was just a preliminary design that we did. But I'm certain there'd be a sidewalk for somebody to walk on, otherwise you'd just be walking down the driveway. So where that's going to be exactly, whether or not it's behind the units out to the street, but I would assume it would be in the front, but I think that's a good idea as well.
And you're planning to refine this, right? This is
Oh,
gonna be
absolutely.
refined for the
This
plan.
is the first design. This is just based.
The point you raised, though, is actually a very good one. I've made a note of it, because a central arbor of some sort would be great, a
Right.
gathering point for them, if they did have some organized activity, and then a central sidewalk within that green area. So I would see that coming from this. And we can certainly develop that further prior to your town meeting consideration.
Anything further, Paul, Peter?
Yeah, so as a voter at town meeting, things that I'm going to want to gain knowledge and comfort with. Basically, I'm seeing this for the first time, other than preparing for the meeting, is to the extent we go down the route of, or you're going down the route of Plan A, which is zoning changes, and I think there was some expression of lack of comfort of permanent zoning changes. I probably am the same ilk. So that I presume there's a variance approach that can work instead of changing
No,
the zoning.
what's proposed here, Peter, would be the zoning changes that would need.
Would have to happen?
Yeah, you'd
Oh.
need to rezone it to an EA zone.
No, I get that,
Okay.
but changing the EA zoning rules as I see in the first part of this.
Yeah, I mean, I can address that if you want, and Gino and I have talked about this. The building occupancy provision is to clarify that you can do an affordable development that's not age-restricted, which
Yes.
in our current bylaw, it kind of reads that way, but this makes it clear.
Well, the way I read that, so where I'm going to need comfort on that is that I read the EA zoning, and it has the purpose of EA zoning. Need to see how what we're doing here is consistent with that. And what I see is, or as I read EA zoning, we dealt with EA zoning last year, which is in essence a spot zoning type of a situation that we have baked into our zoning bylaws. This would require, EA zoning requires that their residents are either, one person is 55 years of age or older, which you're not gonna, that's not what you're trying to
It's not
do.
gonna be.
Although your market will likely be largely that.
Some of the
sounds
units
like.
will have first
Some of
floor.
them.
Yeah.
But the other part of this EA zoning is, or persons eligible for lower moderate income units. So they're either over 55 or they're eligible for lower moderate income as defined by law. This, by changing the zoning law, as this current draft shows, is really making it more like a 40B requirement of just 25% of those residents being eligible for low or moderate. So I'm, as a voter, I'm going to need to gain comfort that that makes sense.
I
You
understand.
follow me? And that it's consistent with the EA zoning. And then as a voter, I'm going to want to know how that, by changing this EA zoning, which would then apply to future projects throughout the town, would allow for just 25% lower moderate income, what that means. So I have to think through the long-term ramifications of this. Likewise, whether there's any retroactive ramifications to already existing EA-zoned parcels and land. I'm not looking for the answers tonight, but those are things I'm going to be wanting to better understand. And I'm going to want to understand, and you touched on it, I think, pretty significantly, but why this would be better for the town than you going on a 40B route altogether, right?
That
And
was
so
the
that,
plan,
you talked about that briefly, and you can put a whole bunch more stuff in there. And so
Absolutely.
more of that understanding, I think, will be critical to getting some votes from some folks. Likewise, you've got some changes to the open space requirements, which you briefly explained that if you had to do them, you couldn't build what you're trying to build here if you followed our current EA zoning space requirements and so forth, I think.
No, that's incorrect, but we can fit them in there. This, what I'd said was keeps in line with the current setbacks. We tried to space the houses enough apart. We have 397 feet of frontage there. Currently, it calls for 150-foot width with a 60-foot setback. So the two end units there, what we thought was it would streamline what was coming down the street, rather than you come down and it catches your eye, because these are another 40 feet
Yes.
further back or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
The width would be the same, so we kept it at current setbacks. But if we had to, we could use the 160. It would be much denser
Denser.
and smaller.
And not
look as
attractive.
much- Exactly.
Yes, yeah,
So
I
that's
get
the
that.
only reason we went with that.
Yep.
But that would have to be addressed, as you state,
Yep.
before the meeting.
I'll certainly be looking forward to what the planning board thinks about all of what you're trying to do and these zoning changes. Because it's a two-part article, if you will, if the first part fails, then where does that leave you? Is a question. Or if both parts fail, where does that leave you? And that'll be things that we'll have to better understand or appreciate the challenge you guys face on this.
If I can say, I'll touch on the 40B
Yeah.
thing first of all. 40B by right allows this, which is controlled by the zoning board and
Yeah.
acts as a facilitator, and DHCD through the state controls, and it's pretty much a wash. They give you whatever, you
can do.
It's, yeah, I mean, by right, I think it's, Peter, am I wrong, can we get 18 units on this under the 40B?
Higher density because it's per acre.
Right.
The number of units,
Right.
and basically, there is local control through your zoning board, but the way you're required to waive a lot more of the
Yeah,
local requirements.
It's very limited, and in approaching you as this way, we're not looking for the max amount of numbers, we're looking for something that's in keeping with the town.
Yeah.
And it actually gives control to the town for the lottery, for the affordables. So for the life of those affordables, they are always affordable. You have the townhouses down the road
That's right, yeah.
that the
Well,
town
you're
did.
segueing right to sort of my last and more from sitting up here thing that I'll need to gain comfort with, is, as you described, the affordable units would be controlled by the town. I want to better understand what we're all talking about here and what the town is getting itself into, both in the short term as well as in the long term, to ensure permanent compliance and so forth of whether it's deed restrictions or whatever, all that kind of stuff.
It's a deed restriction set up for the life of it, like a 400-year deed or whatever it
Yeah.
is. The town, as far as control is, the town would run the lottery. That's
Okay.
the control. Whereas if you do a 40B, the state runs the lottery.
Yeah.
So, it's, the town gets to process the applications that come in.
This would pretty much pick the speed up of the development and give the
I
town...
understand that.
And give the town the most control it could have over the development.
Right.
Because
right.
if we went the 40B or 40R
Yeah,
route...
you've got timeframes that are onerous, and the process is a
Sits around
challenge, I
and-
get that, yeah.
Right.
And
And
then-
then the
and then-
town has no...
Yeah, and at that point, the town has,
We're
the
out of
zoning
it.
board just pretty much is a facilitator.
Right.
They're like, okay, they act as the planning board, but they really don't have any control. And at this level, we give you pretty much the control.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
I want to just commend you for coming in with this idea. I know you started working on that site, and really the vision you had was carve it up and put, sell 3 lots to people who could put big houses on it and leave. And you've been probably holding on to that property a little longer than you thought you would, given the economy and some other situations. And you were willing to come in and talk to some folks at Town Hall, myself included, and David and Gino, and kind of brainstorm some ideas, and you went away and came back with this, which I'm very taken with. I think it would be a good addition to the town center based on what I know about it now and what I've thought about it. I wanted to respond a little bit to what Peter talked about. I think all those questions for the zoning articles are very appropriate. I'm less concerned with the idea that we would tweak this EA district, the dimensionals. Those aren't set in stone, in a sense. It would be an accommodation for this development, but remember, anything that's approved under Residence EA has to go through Planning Board, and they have to approve the plan for it. So if there were another situation in which it wasn't appropriate to have setbacks or smaller setbacks or less open space or reconfigured open space, they would be able to say, no, we don't like it on that lot. Because of the way this lot is configured and what they're trying to accomplish here, I think this would facilitate doing that, and that's why I'm comfortable with the idea that if town meeting for this development is willing to make some changes that accommodate it, the planning board can still, for the next development, say, not appropriate in this case. We got a citizens article, which means there are a number of citizens already, 12 signed this, but a number of citizens already who are excited by this idea and wanted to see it move forward. I would support putting this on the warrant. I guess we don't even have to vote because it's a citizens article.
That's right.
But I do support everything I've seen about this, and I think it's great that, we have an opportunity to have another development close to the center of town. Did anybody in the audience, knowing that this is going to come back to a few more meetings of advisory and planning, does anybody in the audience have any questions now for these gentlemen while they're in here? Yes, and if you just say your name and...
Yeah, Mary Moore. I just had one question. Are any of the abutters included in the supporters of the project at this point?
No.
They have not who have signed the petition.
Okay.
That's one of my concerns, is getting the input of the abutters, and so I had asked for this to be on a formal agenda item, so it would be on the agenda, people would have a chance to hear about it. And this is now being broadcast throughout the town so that people can become familiar with it. And again, my other concern is just the economics of it, because if each of these units, let's say, generates $5,000 of taxes per dwelling, there's 12, that's $60,000. But if there are 10 kids in there, and the town, the cost of educating a child in Sherborn is $20,000, then we will be spending $200,000 with only $60,000 to offset it. Then we're looking at a loss of $140,000. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying I'd like to see
that, and we will.
For you to look at that
Absolutely.
and tell us what you think the impact would be on the community, not just in terms of the physical layout and the abutters. That's important too, but also in terms of how does it affect all the taxpayers of the town.
Yeah, and given the sales prices you told us about, that sounds like about $8 million worth of property value that's being added to the tax rolls.
We don't think it's going to be a
Pretty big-
deficit, but we'll
pretty
have
big
that
number.
information for you next time, promise.
Okay, all good info. Thanks very much. Thanks for coming in and for the good presentation, and we look forward to seeing you, whatever the next step in this process is. Next, we have 2 articles that did not make it onto the, before January 5th for the warrant, but we have an opportunity to add them to the warrant, reopen the warrant to add them if we care to do that. And Harley Kaplan's the sponsor of those articles,
Well,
which
can
I guess are citizens petitions, David?
Yes.
Okay. Paul, you have a question, or?
Yeah, you said it didn't make it on the warrant, but we did have placeholders for these on.
Oh, very good. Good
In my
point.
view is, they are on the warrant.
Yeah.
Because
We knew they were
all-
economic development articles. Yeah, that's
We
good.
had all reserved
We had
this.
NOIs on them in time, right?
Right,
Yeah,
all that
I'm
stuff.
on that same
Okay, good,
point.
great.
So
That's
that
great.
I think they're already on, and no need to to have them jump through hoops.
Subject
because-
to
Yeah, I'll stand corrected on that one, that's
writing and
great.
getting signatures,
That's a-
right?
That's a very good observation. Okay. Harley, the floor is yours.
Sure. I'm Harley Kaplan from 68 Maple Street, and I am here today, as almost a perfect segue from Mr. Giuliani's presentation, to propose two articles for the town meeting. And the reason why I'm proposing these articles, as compared to just getting signatures from people, we would like to get the support from Selectmen. These articles are articles which are kind of unusual in the sense that the person proposing it, myself, I'm not 100% sure I'm going to support these articles, but the reason why I'm proposing them is because I want it open for debate for the town. And more people should participate in the town, instead of the same people showing up time and time again, and all the volunteers doing all the work in the town. So my proposal for the first one is an article to create an economic development overlay zone consisting of existing town zones for business general, business professional, plan unit development, special permit, and elderly affordable zones. That's a half-mile stretch from the geographic town center in a big circle. And the request that the planning board and board of selectmen utilize any and all tools necessary to develop the town center, to provide more and better services for residents, generate tax revenue, and reduce taxes. Now, that's a pretty wide-open subject, but again, I would like it, there are many towns in Massachusetts that have an economic development zone. Most of them are used for expedited permitting. Some of them are used for appealing to the state for funding.
Can I ask you a question about that,
Sure.
Harley? Is that your intent, that this would be under the state program for these types of expedited permitting zones and job creation zones?
My intent would be, if it proves to be worthwhile, that would be a terrific end goal. But we still need to open it up for debate. And the town warrant, I'm hoping, will be the starting point to say that we as a community need to do something about our downtown area. We need to generate revenue. We need to reduce our taxes. And this is a starting point. Whether or not we can do it, I don't know, but let's start it. And so that would be my first article would be the economic development zone overlay for the half-mile stretch of the downtown area. The second article is to see if the town will vote to request that the Board of Selectmen, and again, this is kind of unusual because I really don't need to have it go in front of a town warrant, but I want it to go in front of the town meeting, because I want the town to realize that there are people in this community who are serious about getting something done. And to have a Board of Selectmen create a town parcel study committee appointed by the Selectmen for the purpose of studying potential uses of 5 properties in the town. And those 5 properties are the vacant lot next to the town hall, the town forest near Pine Hill School, the land behind the CMD garage, including the CMD garage, Laurel Fields, and Jamison Fields, in an effort to identify how these properties may be used to reduce taxes and meet the affordable housing obligations while retaining the rural character of Sherborn. And again, I am not sure what we can and cannot do with these properties, but I want to have a focus, would like to see the Selectmen appoint a focused group of professionals who are town planners, finance people, architects, engineers, conservation people, look at each and every one of these properties and see what can and cannot be done. The presentation before me of Mr. Giuliani, when he was talking about 3 to 4 low-income housing units, big difference between 3 and 4. 4 would be a better number than 3. And, but, again, each and every parcel of land has its peculiarities, has potential, and we as a community need to explore that. And so what I'm asking for you is to support that. I'm not asking you to say this is a great idea to have development on those properties. I'm just saying let's start the process of looking at what we have and how we can best maximize the potential from that. And also, if I may, just after I finish this 1 second, make one quick comment at the end, if I may.
Sure.
So
Okay.
those are my 2 proposals for the articles.
Okay. Oh, you want to reserve a comment for after our comments? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying? Paul, do you want to start?
Can I move that we put these on the warrant in connection with the two placeholders that we've been holding for 3 or 4 weeks?
And these are citizens' articles, David? We have
Citizen
signed
articles.
petitions? I don't have a signed petition.
Petitions aren't signed, you'd still have to certify signatures and get signatures.
I can get it signed, but I was hoping that I wouldn't be necessary, but I can get it signed. I'll have it in 2 days.
I don't want to put a citizen petition on the warrant until we have a signed petition for a citizen's petition.
Okay.
Couldn't it be just by,
I mean, I don't know that we even have to take a vote to put it on at this stage of the game, given that it's a citizen's petition, even with the signatures. I think the key point, though, Paul, is that we don't have to open the warrant, because I think we're all in agreement that with the NOI, he's got the placeholder, like other articles, it's still being drafted. Part of the drafting is getting signatures.
Okay.
Well, part of
You
the
know.
drafting is getting signatures, and
Yeah, and but I also think you might, the one you described as the first article, but what we're seeing as the second, might benefit by a little tweaking of the words before you finalize it. That's all. I have no suggestion, but I think just for greater clarity, and, you talked about the half mile downtown and that.
Yes, that's not
just
it.
be more
Sure.
specific of
I can-
where you're talking about, I think.
and I can have I was going to have it tonight, but I've just been busy.
Where is this half mile?
Excuse me, Elliot, we've got a meeting going on. I've got a question for you along the lines of what Peter had, which is how set are you with the wording and the content of these articles? Because I do think that they'd have a little more strength at town meeting and probably provoke a better and maybe more reasoned discussion if they were refined a little bit. And like Peter, I don't have particular wording choices, but I look at both of these and I think there are items that probably don't add a lot of value but would be highly inflammatory or potentially highly inflammatory. And so I guess, just urge you to maybe rethink these a little before you get the signatures. That would be my comment on these.
I will take that in advisement. It's I'm hoping they'll be inflammatory to get people to think.
Yeah, I don't know if you want the kind of inflammatory I'm thinking of, but maybe we can have an offline discussion at some point.
But again, it's to get the discussion moving forward.
Okay.
And again, these articles, at least the article number 1 that I took out of place, I don't need the town warrant. You guys can appoint a committee.
Right.
Understood.
Okay, so, so we can do this without having to, but I think the community itself needs to be part of it to show the support. Just like 59 North Main Street, we have the community, it's time for the community to be open to discussion on these properties.
Thanks. Mr. Taylor had some comments or questions?
My question, you say a half a mile. Where does this half mile start and end?
It's the geographic town center. The
Where
geographic,
is that, please?
for those who don't know, it's approximately,
South Dakota or what?
well, how do you best describe it? I guess almost at the Gandhi statue would be the best way to say it. It's right at that interchange of
The split.
16 and 27.
Washington and Main Street.
Yeah,
Okay.
16 and 27. That is the geographic town center.
Okay, and where are we going from there?
Half a mile around.
So a half a mile around is going to bring you down to Elliott Street.
Can bring it down half a mile.
That'll be the Elliott Street to Farm Road.
Green Lane, some of Maple Street, Farm Road.
I don't see half a mile in these articles.
I didn't put it in there. That's why
described
your
it.
point of clarifying it makes a lot of sense. I'll have it fine-tuned before I have it signed by people.
That was some of the inflammatory stuff I was mentioning. Just what you put in and sort of how you think about it, but,
No, I appreciate that, and I will have it done.
okay. Anybody else with questions or comments? Okay, great. Thanks, Harley. That was really helpful.
May I take
and
just
if-
1 second?
Oh, you had a comment, I'm sorry. And I want to say one thing, which is, this is really, you've been a leader on this effort for at least a year. You said you were going to do something, now you've done it, and much appreciated that you think about these things and follow through with them.
Well, I appreciate everybody coming here tonight. My last comment is, I missed if my understanding, the highway department was here and proposed some construction to be done on some roads in Sherborn at last meeting.
There's a budget with a request for funding, which includes some roads, yes.
And I noticed that Maple Street was not on that one. And this is and we were told a couple years ago that Maple Street was going to be done. It didn't happen last year. Now it doesn't seem like, Maple Street is one of the most dangerous streets in this town. It's the loudest street in the town. It's one of the most heavily used streets in this town. We've been told that the road was supposed to be resurfaced time and time again. You know, if we need another petition to get all the residents to sign, I'll be glad to get that done, but it's time to get Maple Street resurfaced.
I suggest you have a discussion with either David or with Ed Wagner
I did
offline
follow
about
up
that.
after we talked today, so Ed said that it would be done in the spring, that he has it planned for the spring.
Okay, and I appreciate it.
Which is
Thank you.
different than what we talked about last week, so maybe, maybe
the
we should
Chapter
get some
90
clarification.
Chapter
Yeah.
90 priority list that
Right.
Ed would come forward with, right?
Yeah, we just got a 50% increase on our
Chapter 90.
Chapter 90 funds. We just got a grant award for additional money that's going to bring us up from $256 a year to $380. And that's going to go forward every year. So we've got a little more room to get more projects done than we had before.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Harley. Okay, next is the Governance Task Force, which is Kitty Sturgis. I don't know if she's got, oh, she does, Mr. Shea. We got help. They even were matching outfits, which is excellent.
Oh, my God. You're going to start a rumor.
Very good. Thank you for, thank you for coming in on these. And these were kind of late arrivals in our package, so I don't know that we've spent much time with these, but would appreciate you walking us through them, and then we'll go from there.
If I may make some comments
Sure.
before we start.
Thank you.
I appreciate the time. You're probably very sick of seeing Kitty Sturgis in front of you every
Not
week.
true at all. Not true.
But anyway, I'm delighted to be here. If I may give you background on the Governance Task Force, which we call ourselves SGTF, we began our work after the 2013 annual town meeting. The study committee was formed to look at the town's bylaws dealing with governance after considering the recommendations of the Mass Department of Revenue, excuse me, I'm losing my voice, and the Collins Institute reports. A report was to be made at the 2014 annual town meeting with recommendations. The committee consisted of Ronna Rigo, George Shea, Rob Tierney, Chuck Yon, and myself, Kitty Sturgis. And we were appointed by the town moderator, Corey Lincoln, after consulting with the Board of Selectmen. We presented 3 articles at the 2014 annual town meeting. They were stronger language for the town administrator bylaw, town administrators signing the expense warrants, and increasing the BOS from 3 to 5 members. We also requested another year to continue our studies. The voters at the annual town meeting approved all of this. The town administrators signing the expense warrants and the increase of the Board of Selectmen from 3 to 5 members needed a home rule petitions. Each of the petitions were approved by both legislative branches and signed by Governor Patrick. This year, we have brought forth a recommendation that the town accept Mass General Laws, Chapter 43C, Section 11, for the establishment of a consolidated Department of Municipal Finance. Further, we recommend the adoption of and the implementation of a bylaw for the position of Finance Director Accountant. Topics of our discussion and research were concentrated on appointed or elected treasurer, tax collector. The task force voted to support putting the issue to the voters, which this was pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 41-1B, that you had filed for the special town meeting in October. Our position was made clear to the Board of Selectmen when the vote was taken. It was clear that our committee did not take an affirmative position on this conversion. With the resignation of our long-serving town accountant, Ruth Howenshaw, and the posting of a job description for accountant finance director, this opened our discussions to include this. We feel this is a great opportunity for Sherborn. Going forward, recommending for further study, obviously I did this at 5 o'clock tonight, combining the treasurer and tax collector, which would include the collection of all funds, with the appointment by the Board of Selectmen, possibly by the year 2019. I believe the Collins report on page 14 states that the town should go slowly. Before I close, I want to acknowledge the hard work of all the SGTF members have put in the last 2 years. We have had some lively discussions, not always agreeing, but each member was willing to talk it through. A number of interested citizens, residents attended our meetings, and we appreciate their contributions in the discussions. Now, if you have any questions on our recommendations, I will ask George Shea to field the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Paul?
Just a suggestion that your committee in the past has supported strengthening the town administrator, and I wonder, wouldn't it be more consistent with your prior positions to have the town administrator be the appointing authority for the finance director than having the Board of Selectmen be the appointing authority? I was wondering what your thinking was as to why you picked the Board of Selectmen versus the town administrator.
Isn't it in the statute here?
Isn't it,
It's in the statute that the
Appointed by and
executive...
be responsible to the chief executive officer or the chief administrative officer.
You have the option,
So you could do either one.
yes.
Want me to answer it, or do you want me to talk over
Go ahead,
something?
George. You have an answer?
I got an answer.
Okay.
We
good.
want the Board of Selectmen to have the ability to evaluate both the operational requests of the town administrator and the financial information that would be available through the finance director. And keeping with the Collins report and the DOR report, we think that that is a policy function, and there shouldn't be a middle person between those two, especially one who is charged with the administration of town government in this town. So you're going to get raw information without filter if you take our recommendation.
And just a procedural comment, which is that this has to pass town meeting, and then it goes on the ballot for the voters to decide.
That's right.
It would be on the ballot this year, Paul? Is that how that works? Or does it only get on the ballot after town meeting
You could
approves
put it on the ballot, and as you have as the Board of Selectmen have in the past, and if it doesn't pass at town meeting, there is no vote.
So there's no waiting period between the town meeting vote
No.
and
No.
putting it on the ballot? Okay.
Well, there is, because we have the town election usually a
Understood, but
week
there's no
later.
statutory period that you have to wait before you can even put it on the ballot to have a town meeting vote. This is not one where we've got to wait another year for a ballot after the town meeting.
I
It could be in
don't
the-
think so, but
okay,
I see
all right.
town council.
It's not a 41.
It's not like,
Be.
okay, it's not like that, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking. The town council's not going to tell us, so. Peter?
Sure, so that was my question, yeah, we're not consistent with the strong TA objectives of the DOR from what I can see, nor what your recommendation for the duties of the town administrator back last town meeting. So I'm just trying to get my head around what's the right approach here. Picture 5 lawyers up at this table managing a financial person. Picture 5 farmers up at this table managing a financial person.
No, that's a
In
better
addition to in addition to managing, the data, which, when I say managing, there's an element of a fairly large element of day-to-day management required by one or more of the members of the board sitting at this table, both dealing with the town administrator as well as under this structure that you've proposed here. So I don't know if that's in the best interest of the town. I also believe when we went out to hire a town administrator, one of the core areas of expertise was an element of expertise in municipal finance, and we certainly hired somebody with that. So I'm just still trying to get my arms around that. As far as the duties and so forth, I haven't really studied these too carefully. I think you're fairly complete in what you've got. I might suggest tweaking some wording. For example, in H, you have perform all the duties specifically required of a town accountant by the general laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I would suggest putting in there, or delegate while retaining responsibility. Because what you're looking at is somebody that has some horsepower, and you don't want the horsepower to be bogged down in reconciling bank accounts when a clerical person can do that. H suggests that they have to. I would also add in some other, whether it's the BOS or the TA, K, where other duties as the BOS or the town administrator may reasonably request. Some sort of catch-all thing there as your duties.
I didn't catch that.
Just another item in terms of you've got A through J, I'd add in a K in terms of the duties. Other duties as the Board of Selectmen or the town administrator may reasonably request, depending on who ultimately is
Well, I think that
where the chain of command falls.
the introduction of the last part of the suggested language should wait until we see if the recommendation to have the Board of Selectmen appoint and be responsible for evaluating that person goes through.
Well, what I'm saying is whichever one it is, somebody, just having a broader scale, because you've restricted what you're going to get out of this person, but knowing how municipal finance issues that we've had to deal with, something comes up that isn't on the day-to-day work schedule or in this job description that you're going to want that person to do, and they'll have the expertise to do, and it may be something completely new.
I don't disagree with the thought, except where it comes down to, or as requested by the...
No, I'm saying, pick one, whichever one it comes out. Okay, yeah.
I misunderstood you.
Yeah. If it's ultimately, the TA is the part in the chain of command, that's to whom that
Yes, I understand.
do the requesting. And I don't know where we're finally at, but as you know, the town accountant that is at the top of the list, and I believe to whom an offer has been made, and I think accepted, has been groomed, or the full expectation is that person would fill this role however it's defined. And so just so we're all clear, this is not, if that person does come on board, but we're not dealing with hypotheticals, we're dealing with a real person that can do this stuff.
So you do need the bylaw for a finance director?
I understand that. We're right now hiring a town accountant who's fully expected to have the capability and has served in the past as a finance director / town accountant. So
This is why we thought this was a good opportunity for us to give you some materials to, so that you could create this job in a timely fashion.
Yeah. And so the other thing you said, Kitty, and I got a little confused in terms of when you were reading what was done at the last fall town meeting, which I did by cell phone from far away, so I couldn't hear half of what. Oh, I didn't even do this town meeting, the fall town meeting. In terms of the treasurer and the tax collector appointment, what you're saying is you think that's something for 3 years from now, I think is what I heard you say. Or 4 years from now.
I think it should be a very clear vote by the electorate as to what they're voting.
Because we have articles
I understand
teed up that are pushing forward at this town meeting.
Well, then if I may interject my personal opinion, I think you should pick and choose very carefully. If you swamp the voters with a lot of materials,
It gets confusing.
everything's going to lose.
Yeah, no, I get you, and I think we've discussed that, whether we have too much or too little, or what we, certainly more likely too much.
I think that one of the reasons that, at least I voted for the extension of time was to give the town an opportunity to see what the 5-member Board of Selectmen was going
Understood.
to be like.
Yeah.
Depending on the outcome of that election, or the operation of the board subsequent to that election, it seems to me that new issues may arise or may disappear. Old issues may disappear. And if you give it time, one way or the other, you may change your mind on whether you want an appointed or elected one, or whether you want to consolidate. There is a recommendation, I believe, that the collector's job be substantially increased
Yep.
by collecting all of the revenue, for lack of a better generic term, to go through that office. The town administrator has put together a substantial list of revenues, which he has shared with me in the past. And it appears to me that if the town collector was going to make a collection of all those revenues, all those fines, all those license fees, it may be a substantially different job. And it seems to me that it's not something that's going to be done overnight. It's going to take some time and some computer equipment to make it work, so it's not an inconvenience to the public. And I think that if you're going to address the issue of elected and appointed and consolidation, you should wait and see what that recommendation, which can be implemented at any time, I believe, will do to those two jobs.
Your, at last town, the special town meeting, your committee had voted prior to it to support the converting the treasurer position to appointed, correct? Yeah.
No, that's not true.
That's not correct. I thought
As a
you
matter
had.
of fact, and
You
in
had a
direct-
4-0 vote, I thought, Kitty,
Yeah,
didn't you?
but it was, we voted to support putting
it on the ballot.
on the warrant. We supported that part of it, but we did not have a clear position on, affirmative position on the conversion at that point.
That was not made clear to us at all.
Oh, I may have misunderstood
No,
what
I
you
think you
did.
did, because I responded to your question as, are you supporting this? And I said to you personally, because you were at the meeting where the vote took
When the vote
place,
was taken, yeah.
and I said, we're voting the process of 41 to B.
No, 1B.
1B. And you said, okay. And that's what we voted. I even made a modification in the motion to make it clear that that's what we were supporting, the putting of the question on the ballot,
Okay.
not on the conversion from elected to appointed.
Okay, so I've got a few questions, too. I'm also equally perplexed at why the town administrator seems to be kind of subverted in this process. I think that's a
Well, we have
curious...
him on the day-to-day, if, in A, what
I
is
saw
it?
that line.
He,
He is day-to-day reporting. He,
There's no chain of command the way you've set it up. There's no chain of command.
chain of command is that
So if the town admin, hang on a sec, George.
Finance director, as the accountant currently does, reports to you, not to the town
Okay,
administrator.
and one of the problems we sometimes have is getting timely information out of the town accountant maybe because there's not a clear chain of command
Well,
between
it
the
would
town
be here.
administrator and the
It would
accountant.
be you.
Well, it would be us, but sometimes being us doesn't seem to help.
but we say coordinates with the town administrator on the day-to-day financial operations.
Yeah, well,
So he or
okay.
she must be in contact with the town administrator.
Yeah, I mean, I think my preference also would be to have a stronger sense of the town administrator's role in this.
You have a suggestion?
No, because I got this yesterday.
Okay.
Okay.
And No.
Will you have a suggestion?
Once I've had a chance to digest it, maybe I will.
Would,
As far as, George, as far as the collector article, I think you have, and that's not actually before us right now, but since we brought it into the discussion, I'll address it. The collector article that's on the table for this town meeting potentially is an article that would give, would create a process by which the collector would, with, I believe it's with the town administrator, the way it came out, or with the affected departments, I forget. But there would not be an automatic collecting of every stream of revenue, and I think exactly for the reason you stated, which is that would be a big shift. The idea is to do it incrementally as it makes sense to do it. But the whole point is to save the town money and be more efficient for the town. So that's why, at least at this point, I favor putting that into effect sooner rather than later, because I think we miss opportunities to save money for the town.
What would you like to put forward?
Well, that's a different article, which we'll talk about, which is a Selectmen article that we're not talking about that tonight, are we?
We're not talking about it tonight.
No. And then the other question I had is just more of a general question, and with great appreciation for all your work on this and the other things. Do you expect again to make a motion to extend the life of your committee for another year?
I am looking at a sunset.
Okay, but a sunset as of town meeting this year? Okay, and George, do you agree with that also?
You agree?
It all depends on whether you put forward a warrant to article for a town charter.
Because you jump right off that and go on the Charter Commission, is that what you're saying? Can't get enough of this stuff?
I can't commend the committee more highly than what I've...
Oh, your committee? You've done a great job, a lot of work.
It's been a lot of work, but all five of us have worked together. And I mean, government wasn't built in a day. We can't change it in a day. So we're open to suggestions on that. But I hear you, what you're saying on you want the town administrator to have more power in this in directing this position. But is there something in the general bylaws that's not in the...
Yes, there is.
That you have, that the accountant is responsible to you?
Understood.
Yeah. And I think that's what was directing us with that wording.
Okay. Well, and like I said, I want to digest this a little more also, as I think the
I
other
would
board
also
members do.
call your attention to the existing bylaw, Chapter 3. Section 6.2B.
This the
You're
town's
the guy with the
bylaws?
iPad.
Want me to read it to you?
Sure.
It says, this is describing the duties of the town administrator. Direct supervision of the employees of the Selectmen's office and general supervision of the department heads under the control of the Board of Selectmen. Department heads and other employees shall report to the department head, shall report to the Board of Selectmen through the town administrator.
Okay, so, and you don't envision making a change in that?
Envision building on this.
Okay, all right. Well, that's probably helpful, George. But like I said, I think with appreciation for all the information tonight, it's a lot of information, and this is, maybe a little different than what we expected, so I'd like to get a chance to digest it. It sounds like Paul and Peter are like-minded.
That's what we're here for, and we
Great.
look forward to the
Thank you.
continuing dialogue.
I would ask you to, in your considerations, to look at the two verbs that are used in that section that you are discussing. One is the hiring and firing and evaluation, and the other is reporting. The word reporting implies something that I wouldn't necessarily, wouldn't be consistent with one way of going on the hiring, firing, and evaluation. So if you can separate the hiring, firing, and evaluation from the reporting process, I would think that would make a compromise easier.
Look at that as well. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Michael,
So you got another?
I need a break.
Okay, we're going to take 5, 3,
All right.
3? Take 3. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Pat, we're off for 3 minutes.
So would your rest of your guys say the same thing that you said, that whatever said to me? Section 41. You're good.
We're good to go? Okay, great. Welcome, and please, we're going to talk about the library article, so just let us know what you're looking for, introduce yourselves, I guess, and I don't know if you have a presentation or just want to speak from there.
I'm not going to do a big presentation.
Okay,
I'm going to try
fantastic.
and keep this very short. I know that you have a lot on your agenda. I'm Stacy Brandon, and I am the chair of the Library Trustees, and Jim Murphy, I'm sure you know both of us. The one thing I want to say is we are finally here, finally. We are so excited to be bringing this in front of the town this year. Feels like it was never going to get here, but it is, finally. We began the process, because we're on television, I'm going to give a little quick
Yeah, please do,
overview.
that's helpful, thanks.
We began the process for this whole library renovation in 2007, when the trustees first applied and were awarded a Phase 1 design grant from the Mass Board of Library Commissioners that was then matched with a $20,000 private donation from the Saltonstall Foundation to allow us to do a feasibility study to see what was involved in bringing the building that was built in 1971 up to code, increased space as well as ADA access and all of the systems that are 40 years old in the building. So we did that project, and since then, so many people have been involved in this project to make it happen. Current and past trustees, citizens on various committees and phases and parts of the project, many wonderful and hardworking volunteers, and the tireless friends of the Sherborn Library, who I would like to put a plug in for the Friends of the Library. They not only donated the seed money to kick off the capital campaign that we've just completed of $75,000, but they also were instrumental, excuse me, in paying for the migration to the Minuteman Network, Library Network, which we are all enjoying now, that was paid for completely privately. Town paid nothing for that. So, and that was a $50,000 fee to join Minuteman, and it's a $25,000 or $27,000 fee a year to participate in Minuteman. So, and I can tell you that's exactly the reason we haven't joined until now. We had to wait for our contract with our other supplier to run out. So, and also the truly remarkable capital campaign committee that we've had that has worked for the last 2 years, raising
funds privately for us. It's unbelievable, and the town of Sherborn is so amazingly generous. It's just been a wonderful experience. Long, but a wonderful experience. This project is supported and moved forward by the citizens and supporters of the town of Sherborn. So to give you a quick overview of the project, it was projected to cost, after we did the feasibility study in 2000, well, actually, when we finally got all of the projections in on what we thought the construction costs would be, which was in 2011, $7.5 million. That $7.5 million, now this is to bring the building, to increase the space, primarily for children's areas, to bring all of the systems in the building up to code or working order, and then to meet all of the codes for the building, fire, earthquake, believe it or not. Now, I mean, we've had all these earthquakes lately around here, but fire, ADA access, all of the codes. So that number includes contingencies and escalation clauses. Of the Mass Board of Library Commissioners is a very they're a very conservative group, as you can imagine. So they want to make sure that when you put a proposal in for a project, it's a real proposal. It's not, well, oh, we forgot this, that. They're very, very detailed about what they ask for. But while it does have contingencies and escalation in there, it does not have pledge contingencies or and endowment monies for any maintenance of the renovated or expanded building, as well as any costs that are not covered by the MBLC grant. And some of the costs not covered are paving, landscaping, so they're not reimbursable costs. So they were things that we would have to raise money for separately and not be reimbursed. One of the amazing things, well, so we wrote the grant, submitted it, and we were awarded a pledge for that grant for $3.6 million. Fortunately for us, because it took us so long to go through this process, by the time we applied for the grant, the MBLC had changed their reimbursement structure to 50% of the project. Now, normally, up until this point, the school projects and all of the library projects have all been 35%. So we were, because of the economic conditions, they changed the format of this bidding situation. So we now are the recipient of 50% of the costs of the project, which is wonderful. So we were put on a waiting list because what happens is they put out a group of awards and then they dole it out yearly with a cap. And we were at the end of the waiting list, surprising to us, because of course when Elizabeth and I and the trustees wrote it, we thought we'd be first on the list, but we weren't. We were at the end of the list. But we've been told now by the Mass Board of Library Commissioners that the last group of libraries are going to be awarded the monies this year, and they normally do it in July. So over the summer, Elizabeth and I met with Representative Linsky and the Mass Board of Library Commissioners at the State House and said to them, we are definitely getting this money, right? Yes, you are definitely getting this money, and yes, you will get it in the summer. And then we talked to them about the fact that we have our town meeting in April, so we talked about all that, and Representative Linsky has assured me that he is going to be attending town meeting, because I want everybody to understand that this money is actually going to be released to us in July. It's just a matter of working its way through the legislature. So we got the $7.4 million project, 3.6 from the town, and we are asking the town of Sherborn, which is our notice of intent, for $1 million. Now, three things to keep in mind with that $1 million. It's less than half of the amount of money that's been as a placeholder in capital budget for the library project. When we first started this, we had no idea how successful we would be or if we could raise any money at all. So we put in $2.5 million as a placeholder. We've been very successful in fundraising. So, sorry, I have to back up for a second. So we had $2.5 million in the capital budget for a placeholder. So we've come to the town for $1 million because almost all of our donors have said they will not donate money unless the town of Sherborn has some skin in the game. And the $1 million allows us to take some of the other monies that we've raised, and I'll get into that in a minute, and put it toward endowment monies, for contingencies, pledge contingencies, things like that, and other things that are going to need to be done that the town of Sherborn just is not going to have the money for. So the other thing to think about is that if we were, when we did the estimate for this project, if we were to keep the existing library as it exists today and just do all the things we needed to keep it open, because we've been grandfathered on all of these codes because we've been in process for 7 years with this. But if this project doesn't go through, that all goes away. If we have to do something with that building, and in order to keep it open, we'll have to do it. It was estimated in 2011 to cost $3.2 million. And that was before we put in a sprinkler system, which we had to go back and add into the project. So it's $1 million for increased space, all the code work, and all updated, completely updated systems. And, you know, that building has held up pretty well since 1971. It was originally built and donated by the Saltonstall family and given to the town for no money. So that building has been sitting over there pretty much free for the town. And, you know, we have the budget for the library is 6% of the town? No, 1.5, I'm sorry, I'm not a finance person, 1.5% of the town budget, and we also donate from the endowment funds 6% of that money, correct?
25,000 approximately a year.
Right, a year, that helps underwrite the cost of doing the library. So, we're bringing forward, we would like $1 million from the town. $1,000.
Oh, 1,000, you've got the 1,000. Thanks very much. Write the check now. We're there.
I'm telling you. You can tell it's been a long day. I'm sorry, I've had a very long day today. So, so in keeping with the public-private partnership idea that we went forward with this, and that's also the reason that it's taken us so long. Over 2 years, we've raised $3.6 million, which is just unbelievable, privately from very, very generous and supportive donors. So, as I said, you know, these are the reason that we're coming to you for $1 million, and we've raised more money than we need to make the $7.4 million. But also keeping in mind, there are a number of donors who donated money for specific things, children's garden, certain naming opportunities that will have endowment pieces to them. So we've tried to cover as many bases, and Jim, my financial person, can answer some of those questions. But it will be, the donors are looking forward to a new, updated, and improved library with a lot more space. I'm going to hand out a project sort of overview. You don't have to read this now, but it's got an overview on the front. It's got a timeline on the next 2 pages, which basically gives you checked off things that have happened already, and then what's, you know, sort of an estimated timeline of how things are going to happen. Now, as I said, we're going to be awarded this money in July, or around July, and we're asking for this vote before we get the final grant release. As I said, we've met with the MBLC and Representative Linsky, and, you know, we've been asked the question, do you ever not get the money for a library project? It's never happened, and we're at the tail end of a process now. So, you know, it will happen. But if we wait not to go to town meeting this year, then if we wait to get the money, then we have to wait a whole nother year before we can go for a vote. So because we've had to wait so long, and, you know, every time you wait, things get more expensive and things move on, and we really need to get that building done. So that's why we're going to be asking for the vote in April, and then go for the the vote in May. We will also, because we've had such success with our fundraising, and we already have how many in the bank already?
We have
$2,845,833. Right, in cash, in the bank already. We will be able to, if we get the vote in May, we will be able to go forward with the hiring process in terms of getting an owner's project manager, getting some of the, all of the paperwork written up for hiring the architect, and we can keep things moving so that once we do get the first payment received, because it takes like 6 weeks for, once you put the paperwork in, for the actual check to get to you, but we can do all of that kind of thing once we get the yes vote to kind of move the project forward. We don't have to wait, and that's another nice thing about having raised the money.
So should we maybe ask some questions, or?
Well, let me just say one more thing, and that is that, and this is another question that we've had, is that the projects that we've already done in the library, because when we found out we were on the waiting list and we had to wait for a couple years, the trustees really felt the prudent thing to do, because the building was still going to be opened, was to do the one bathroom and make the doors so that they were accessible. So at the very minimum, you could get into the building, you could use the facilities. All of everything that happens in the library happens only on the main floor. So, we've done some accommodations to get us through these 2 years, because we were really hoping that this project would have started 2 years ago. But none of those costs we don't have to redo any of that work. So while we're going to have to do all the rest of the work, that's one bathroom already done, and the doors are done. So, people have asked, do we have to redo it, and we don't.
Thanks, Stacy.
Paul? First, let me say, wow, what a nicely done project so far. I am truly amazed at the $2.8 million that you have in the bank. Wonderful.
Thank you.
And that makes a huge difference, I think, not only for the state, but for the residents of the town, to see how many people are committed to this. I mean, committed not just in words, but actually putting dollars behind it. Wonderful. Two things that seem that people would be interested in. You are projecting the library to open 2 years from now, April 2017, which is a fabulous schedule. That's wonderful. Will the library be open during construction?
That is something that it has not been settled yet. Probably, well, we're going to have to relocate the library at some point, and we're working right now trying to find out where we may relocate to. There's been discussion, I guess the answer is we really don't know yet. There's been discussion because it will be very noisy, and because they're going to have to build, the foundation of the new wing, and, that's an open building, and it was really, really noisy when they were building the, just the bathrooms and doing some of that small remodel. So that it has not been decided yet. But if it is, if it is closed, then the project can also go a lot faster. If you have to work around people being there, things tend to be slower. But I think that's something that as we go forward in this process, we're going to have to figure out.
And the other thing is that the state started its annual budget process, and to the extent I'm involved with that, which I am, I will do my best to make sure that the appropriation for the line item for libraries stays pretty much where it is. It is subject to annual appropriation. It has been stable, so there's no reason to think that there would be an issue, but there is a overall state deficit right now that the new governor is trying to solve, and that deficit presents two problems. One is, how do we balance the books for the rest of this year, but also how do we set a budget for next year that reflects the actual tax receipts rather than the estimated tax receipts. So there is pressure on items, and to the extent that I'm involved in this, which, as I say, I am, I will do my best to keep this item safe.
Great.
Peter, anything?
Yeah, no, I just think it's remarkable how much the generosity of so many in dollars and time to get to where we are, where you are at this point is just phenomenal. And for $1 million, we essentially get a new library. And if you don't do it, you got to spend 3 or 4 times that to keep the doors open, basically, because we've been,
Right.
you know,
And no one will, it's going to be hard to get monies donated for
yeah,
that. That's going to be on
yeah, so
taxpayers'
that's a big, so I just think, wow, thanks, it's incredible. The only other thing is strategically how you make that really clear to people, the voters who make the ultimate decisions here, particularly when they're up against another $1.5 million of other things that
Right.
are being asked for. So it's almost like we have to kind of put this in a separate bucket in terms of how people think of it than the routine capital requests
Right.
that are going on here.
Right, and
So-
I think we're going to probably be urging you when you're scheduling your votes for a Proposition 2.5 override to have us as a standalone question and not group us in with other projects, because I think it does have a unique place in the town and also in the way in which it has been developed to this state. So probably at a later time, that'll come up, but I wanted to put it on your minds
Yeah.
early.
It's a good
As
idea.
perhaps a separate question for the Proposition 2.5 part.
Great, thanks. Anybody out in the audience have anything? Anybody who's not from the library itself?
We travel as a pack.
Thanks very much, and thanks for all your time and
Wow.
and all your great
Well
effort
done. Well
before now. Thanks.
It was truly a team effort, so many people. I have beautiful renderings that I can leave with you if you guys want to look at them. They're also at the library, and I would also recommend for anyone that's interested in the project, go to the town, the Sherborn Library website, and there's renovation news. You can click on there, and all the information is public, and it's been up there and is up there.
Why don't we try to get those, Diane, set up, on an easel or something downstairs, or
We have them, they are usually up in the library.
yeah, in the library, but just in terms of having them at Town Hall, that would be a good thing. Okay, the next item is the consideration of the intermunicipal agreement to the regional school regarding capital budgeting and, it says no, regarding capital borrowing, sorry. And I think, just probably for ease of, I may be closest to what all these different versions are now, I will explain what everybody is looking at in their packages of documents, which may make things easier. There were several versions, and unfortunately, I think it was necessary to put several versions. There are several versions in the package, and then there was one version that Diane left at our places earlier today. One of the versions was the original version that was signed last year.
And that's document 2.
Document
up in the corner.
2
There's
in the
document
corner.
numbers, except for
Okay.
the one we got today.
Can I suggest, at my law firm, I require everybody to number every version, so there's either A, B, or C, or 1, 2, or 3.
Looks like that's done here with 2, 3,
It
et
is
cetera.
in handwriting.
The last one, Paul, Paul's right, the
The last one didn't come in with it,
last one didn't.
that we got
I
today.
put version 5 on the one that I got handed a little while ago. But I'm just saying generally, from the point of view of keeping track of evolving documents, you really should number every document.
Yeah, and these documents were floating around from a bunch of different sources, including the school committee.
We have document 3, Mike. It has this change in it, right? So
Yeah, so
you
I was
have
gonna-
document 2, as you just said.
Yeah, I was going to kind of walk through these, if that's
that'd be
okay.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got document 2. Document 2 is the version that was signed last year. Document 3 reflects what we talked about on December 18th, which was the idea of building in some type of a process whereby the school committee would request funds, and we would have to pay within a certain number of days. And bond counsel for the schools was willing to work with that concept and drafted document 3 with a 15-day period. That was sent to us by an email from Superintendent Bliss indicating he was going to bring it before the Regional School Committee on January 6th. But in fact, and maybe because of discussions he had with various school committee members or some other reason, it was not brought forward on January 6th. Instead, what was brought forward on January 6th is version 4, which is exactly the same as version 2, which we signed last year, except the numbers are different. So that would represent no change in the substance and no response to our December discussion. Document 5
I think is
is the same, and that's what was approved. And then this is document, we'll call it document 6, the one Diane laid at our desks earlier. And this is a document that includes some language that I worked out with Steve Bliss just to try to accomplish what we were looking to do in December. And that is to add the phrase, due on or before July 15th, or a later date by agreement of the town and the district. And what that does is if either town has cash flow issues or other reasons to not want to make the payment or not be able to make the payment by July 15th, they can work that out with the region, and that was intended as at least an attempt at a compromise. I'll tell you, from what I understand, the Dover Selectmen would prefer absolutely no change in the language we agreed to last year. My take on that is that we agreed to it last year as a trial run of 1 year, and the purpose of a trial run is to see if there are other things you need to change the following year. And so that would be my argument. If we think that it's important to build in some flexibility, that we try to proceed with one of the versions that has flexibility. So, Paul and Peter?
Well, first, I appreciate the time and effort you've put into this. I know it's been time-consuming and frustrating when you worked on something and then something else gets submitted. So thank you for all of that. I think where I'm at is that I'm happy with the change that you made and would support that, but I'm also willing to sign the agreement as we signed last year.
Okay.
And I say that because of several considerations. One, I believe in maintaining a good relationship with Dover and the regional schools, and Dover has taken a pretty clear position on this. Sometimes, point 2 is sometimes change needs to come softly, and we've thrown out the concept this year. It may be too late this year in the sense that everybody's voted the earlier version, and change is hard. But next year, having laid the foundation, maybe this would be the one that gets presented and gets voted. And the third is that it worked last year. And because it worked last year and there really wasn't any downside to the community, I don't see that there's a real downside for the community in doing this for another year. And I guess the last point is that we need to take care of our schools and our school buildings, and I don't want to see us get bogged down in a lot of wrangling and lawyers, and I say that as a lawyer, but lawyers over words. So to sum up, I support the change, and we'll vote to present that. But if it doesn't fly, I will support the version that I signed last year, that we all signed last year, in order to get it done, with the idea that we can work on this kind of change for the future.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in the same spot as Paul on this, except unless David, as our interim treasurer here, has any issues with the ability, if he foresees any issues right now, with the ability to come up with $163,000 by July 15th, which is what, if we do the last year's version, that's what we have to do. And he's shaking his head. So I think reality is, fighting for that clause in this is really, it's not going to be necessary anyway. But
There's also an advantage here to this. The way bond council set this thing up, the financial obligations of the community are set. That's version, I renumbered it 6.
Okay,
version 5.
that's 6, yeah.
The way the bond council set this up, the financial terms are set as of basically today.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the issues that we had with the region in the past that almost led to a lawsuit was what formula applies when. And this sets, so at least there's absolute certainty. We know what the formula is. If we delay the borrowing of the money so that it occurs, let's say 2 years later, when it says by a later date by agreement with the town and the district, would that agreement come with the caveat that, okay, Sherborn can borrow the money 2 years later, but it'll be at a different division between the communities, and given the way the houses are turning over in Sherborn, and a lot of young families moving in, that formula may not necessarily be advantageous to Sherborn 2 years from now. So I like the fact that it's fixed, it's done, and it's a favorable rate, because right now Sherborn is 45.55% and Dover is 54.45%. So Dover's paying more than us.
Right.
So there's an advantage to this.
Right, and I'm not far off from where you and Peter are, Paul. I'd just make a couple observations. One, in terms of the last point you made, while it's true that the agreement could come with a clause that says you reallocate the formula, we'd know that up front. In other words, it would be due as of July 15th unless we reached an agreement to pay it at a later date. And so if it came with, penalizing conditions to it, we wouldn't follow, we wouldn't take advantage of the extension unless we absolutely needed to. And that was the reason I wanted flexibility. I think I am comfortable, because we don't need it this year, with going forward with the same language as last year. I'm cautioning everyone that what I hear is that Dover intends to lock this in. In other words, they're not going to look favorably on attempts to change it next year. So in some ways, I feel like we have a stronger argument for changing it this year, because we lived with another version for 1 year, and that was the trial run, and this is the first year of what's supposed to be a more permanent version of the contract. In other words, they don't want to renegotiate it every year. I suppose we could go back to them and say, you win for this year, we're not going to renegotiate it, but we want to let you know that we leave open the possibility that we're going to ask for a clause like this in the future. And frankly, they may need a clause like this in the future. If their borrowing is extensive in one particular year, or their free cash reduces, I mean, it's not necessarily the case that Dover is always going to have, the financial wherewithal to pay out of pocket for these costs, which was the purpose of this agreement to begin with. So I will, if you want to make a motion to approve the version that was last year's language with the new numbers, I'm happy to support that, but with a caveat or a message in transmittal to the school committee and to Dover that says that we reserve on that other issue for future years.
I know Dover wants a multiple-year agreement.
I don't know that we can do a multiple-year agreement, can we?
That's what I heard that they were looking for, and this is only a one-year agreement. If they ever came to us and said, well, we want the agreement changed to be not just 1 year, but for things in the future, that's, when they are looking for something, that's when you
That's
can,
an opportunity to inject that, because then we wouldn't have the certainty of the current year. Yeah,
right.
That's right.
Then it becomes really important to figure out what the division is, and how, and if there's a surplus left over,
Mm-hmm.
who does the surplus go to? That was the subject of the almost potential lawsuit, and this is nice to the extent that it defines that. Having said all that, if you want to take a run at getting them to change this, I'm happy to support you on that. You're the leader on this. If you want our support, take a run trying to get the language that Bliss and you worked on. That's fine with me. If you just want to go to the last year's agreement, that's fine with me too.
There's
Whatever you
also
want.
some advantage in giving Dover something that they want in a situation where it doesn't hurt us. And so, from that standpoint, I don't know that we need the change this year. I mean, you make a good point that this is a one-year agreement. If it were a multi-year agreement, it'd be more important to know that we had some flexibility in the future. We can always look ahead 2 months or 3 months on a one-year agreement and know that we're apt to have whatever the cash flow is as of July 15th. On a longer-term basis, it's maybe less likely, so.
Yeah, I'm glad you're thinking that way. This is not the battle to fight at this stage of the game. But I will say, because we were on a one-year trial, the agreement last year that we signed in the same draft this year has provisions at the second paragraph of Section 3, and you look at the last line of Section 5 regarding record keeping. These projects, what we paid for were a variety of projects all bundled together. And we really didn't know, these are based on projections. We really don't know what they actually did, but we have the right to know what they actually did, and we have the right to know whether there's any funds left over. And I don't know whether we've received any periodic reports, or if we have, if anybody's made meaning of them. So I would ask that, as not to confuse the vote, but that somebody follow up and find out where they were at with what we did for this fiscal year, or where they're currently at, I guess, because it's all part of this fiscal year's capital outlay here.
All right. So do we have a motion to support the?
Going to follow whatever motion you make.
Oh, I'm making the motion?
I move to approve document 5, which is last year's version with updated numbers and splits, as well as adding, it uses the term now member town as opposed to town.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. That's done. I did want to mention, when we're talking about capital projects for the schools, and one of the items that I discussed the other day with the superintendent was, he had noted that there was a question asked at one of our recent meetings, Paul, about security expenditures for the schools, and I guess
that was my question.
not identified in the local budget. And he wanted to reassure us that there are security projects that are in their capital plan. In fact, they've, I guess, found they found an item that isn't going to cost as much as they thought it was going to cost, which would allow them to include some security items. And I'm sure they'll have more detail about that, but he did want to reassure people that that's not something that's escaped their notice.
Good. From a policy point of view, it's important that we keep the buildings well-maintained, but it is more important, in my view, that we keep our kids safe, and that they have the security they need to prevent any threat to the children. And that's where I put the priorities.
And
so
Peter's
that really was the message.
And Peter's noticing on their capital request, they did add the words security improvements, which is good. Okay, we're on to the next item. David, you want to walk us through this next piece?
Let me get there.
I like this cover sheet issue.
Separates it.
Well, it's just.
It works.
It's good. It's
All right. I'm sorry about that. This is, has to do with the Sherborn Community Housing Corporation having a limited revival. The Sherborn Community Housing Corporation was formed years ago and was aided in the development of the Leland Farms. There's one trustee on the Leland Farms trustees that was appointed by the Sherborn Community Housing Commission, and we've had great discussion about reviving that organization and having that organization turn over their authority to make that trustee appointment to the Board of Selectmen. And this is looking for a vote to accept from the Sherborn Community Housing Corporation the transfer of the right of appointment to appoint that seat on the Leland Farms trustees, Board of Trustees.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, further discussion? Anything town council wants to tell us about this?
No, if you vote, it's just, I believe you have to sign it, and we need to have it notarized. So we're
Okay,
gonna-
and that's separate from signing an appointment, because the next thing we'll do is talk about the
Yes,
appointment.
that's separate.
Okay, so, no further discussion, all in favor? Aye, okay, we've accepted the appointment authority. Now, the next thing we need to do is to advertise the fact that this position is available and seek applicants and interested parties, so we can actually appoint somebody at a future meeting.
Yeah, on that note, I would observe that the current, or the former occupant of that seat resigned.
That's right.
So it is vacant and has been vacant for a while. And their life does not wait for anybody, so that things are happening all the time. We need to have this advertised, we need to get applications submitted, and the process should start, because there is no one on duty.
Okay, good. And we can put that in the newspaper this coming week, David, or press
Yep.
release? All right. What's your plan then?
Well, I was going to say, ask town council, is this effective at the time that they voted?
The authority?
Yeah,
What they just voted?
right.
Yeah, well, actually, as soon as we can record it at the registry, yes.
Okay.
But we can still advertise the vacancy.
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
yes, it's effective immediately.
Okay, just not make an appointment, okay. Yeah, we're going to do it, I would guess, like, the 30 days, we'll notify Dover Sherborn Cable, the Dover Press, the Dover Sherborn Weekly paper, put it on our bulletin boards, put it on our website, get it out to committees.
So do we want to use 30 days, or we want to use 4 weeks out meeting?
I'd
Since
stick
we're
with
not on a
30
days.
days.
30 days?
It's been pretty much the standard for a long time.
I'm happy to go whatever makes people
Yeah,
comfortable.
fine. It was
That's
just
fine.
in keeping with your point, Paul, about, this doesn't wait for anybody, it's vacant, and, the activities over there need to continue.
Well, that was the message for the public, that we want them to submit applications.
Okay. But the 30 days,
It's
that
an
gives us
important,
plenty.
it's an important position.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not,
critical.
it's not a do-nothing position. It's a position that has important say in things, and I'm trying to entice and induce people to come forward.
Yeah, and I
That
think
was-
Peter's only point was 30 days really means 35 days, because we meet on Thursday, and so it would be 5 weeks, but I'm fine with doing it that way. That's okay. If it makes everybody comfortable with the 30 days, I don't think that's a critical issue. So do we, I guess...
We have
I
to
don't know-
sign something in
I don't know
front
that
of
we
our
need a formal
notary.
vote to tell David what to do, but he's got the message here.
Are you a notary?
Diana.
Diana's gone and gotten her, to get her. stamp.
You are? Oh,
She's
good.
not gone. She's right there.
Excellent.
I have no
All right, well, we can probably sign that when do we have to sign it in public, or we can sign it later?
We can sign it later.
Okay, so then we can move to our next item, which is routine business, town administrator business, and selectmen business. David, town administrator business.
I was just going to announce that there's another vacancy. There was a resignation from George Shea from the Council on Aging that came in last Friday, and I think I distributed it to the board. So we want to thank George for his service on the Council on Aging and announce that vacancy.
Okay, so so there's a vacancy on the Council on Aging, and what does the Council on Aging do, David? What's this vacancy all about?
Well, the Council on Aging oversees basically the senior programs in town. They're involved with the Elder Housing Committee in not running Woodhaven, but they keep in close contact because all the Woodhaven residents are also Council on Aging constituents. So, but they run day-to-day programs, and they're involved in senior issues. There are 2 nurses at the Council on Aging that do visiting.
So the
They
trustee...
arrange rides.
I mean, the board member, the Council on Aging board member would participate in developing these programs and administering these programs with the board.
Right.
With the council.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The Council on Aging has a director, and it's a department, so the director is actually the one overseeing the department and doing the work. The board directs hires the director and advises her on those programs.
How many on the board?
I don't know. They have a long list of associates, so I think there's like 9 on the Council on Aging, and then there's a whole list of associate members there.
That's good. So maybe one of the associates is interested, or maybe somebody new in town will be interested. Good, great. So you'll get that started, David. Thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else on the TA business report? No?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Selectmen business, does anybody have anything for Selectmen business? Paul, you wanted to talk about something?
Yes. I wanted first to show everybody this little booklet, which was from the Sherborn Business Association, working hand in hand with our community, is what it says on it. They had a awards ceremony. They raise money, they do fundraising through things like the Beer Fest that we talked about earlier today. And then they use that money to issue grants to worthy causes. So at this award ceremony, our town administrator represented the town, and I think he actually ran off with a check or two in his pocket.
Yes. Yeah.
That was awarded to different organizations. But I thought it would take a minute first to recognize and thank the Sherborn Business Association for doing this program. And secondly, to mention some of the grants that were awarded to give a sense of the scope of what they do. So the Sherborn Business Association Community Action Fund Award Night with the 2014 grant recipients were the following. First, to the Sherborn Historical Society, an award for restoration of the Amos Clark Friendship Quilt. This is actually a quilt built in the... You don't build a quilt, you stitch it, or I guess create it in the 1800s. Another award to the Forest and Trails Association in support of the February 6th Conservation Connections event. An award to the Sherborn Police Department and the Pine Hill School CSA for the DARE training program for a police officer. The DARE program is the Drug Awareness...
Something in education.
Resistance in Education, thank you. Then to the Farm Pond Advisory Committee to purchase an electric power washer to wash boats entering Farm Pond. To the Friends of the Sherborn Library to sponsor a summer concert performance. To the Pine Hill CSA to sponsor an a cappella performance to be given by Ball in the House for all students in May. To the Sherborn Playground Committee, a grant towards rebuilding the playground. To the Sherborn Community Center Foundation for the repair, tuning, and shipping of 2 pianos in support of the beautiful music at the Sherborn Community Center project. To the Sherborn Police and Fire Rescue Public Safety Information Dissemination Project. To the Sherborn Recycling Committee to purchase scrap pails and buckets for food waste collection. To the Dover Sherborn Middle School Drama, an add in Annie playbill. Then in addition to that, the Sherborn Business Association annual awarded vocational scholarship, and to be used to pay for banners for the downtown area. They had a picture of it, but not in the booklet, that would say, "Welcome to Sherborn." And they have a note here that since 2012, thanks to the Sherborn-wide support of our annual Brewfest fundraiser and social event, the Sherborn Business Association, through its Community Action Fund, has been able to give back $27,000 to to various Sherborn civic organizations and educational needs. We're going to have to vote as a board to accept some of these grants. That is, under the general laws, we have to actually vote to accept them. I think that they will be coming in individually when they have reason to appear before the board to accept these things. But the
That's
whole
great.
point of this was to thank and to give recognition.
And thanks for going, Paul, and representing the board, too. I know.
Well, David did.
And David, yeah.
Well, we also had a couple of officers there to receive those grants.
Oh, great. Good.
Firefighters and
That's excellent.
farm pond people.
Yep.
Forest people.
Pat for Farm Pond?
No, Catherine.
Catherine for Farm Pond, okay, great.
I taped it, and it's on, the ceremony itself is on YouTube.
It's on YouTube, it's been taped, and it's on YouTube for people who want to see the ceremony.
And it's about to go viral, right?
Just watch it to see what happened and why it's going viral. All right,
A lot of hits.
that's it.
So when we set the next meeting, I don't have a report, but I just want us to set a hard date on the selectmen's budgets, so that we deal with them. I know you're wrestling with some stuff, but whatever date you're comfortable, let's get to that, because here we're continuing to deal with budgets, but we don't have the
Right.
overall, and we can't really say, geez, we
Right.
support it quite yet, because we're still struggling. So
Well-
that's one thing. I'm not trying to,
Well, I have sent it out just to you for some, because it depends on what it looks like on how you slice it, so we'll talk about
So
how it
that's
should be
my- that's
organized.
my email.
Yeah, that's the email with the attachment.
Oh, okay.
And I did check, last year's, I got to this point, January 14th, so I am
yeah, so
one
I'm
day
just saying,
late.
let's just try and get an agenda with a hard date that we can really all
If we're
commit
going to go
to.
back to every 2 weeks for a while, is there any reason we need to meet next week? or
We
not?
were already filling an agenda for the 22nd.
The 22nd, okay.
I can't
You're
make
out,
it the
right?
22nd because I have duties with the Mass Municipal Association,
Okay.
setting up a convention that's going to be organized and go forward for that weekend, so I can't attend.
Okay. What do you,
But I could do like Monday or
next
Wednesday.
Monday's probably too tight.
Yeah,
Wednesday, no.
Friday morning.
I suspect Paul has duties on Friday,
Oh.
too.
No, that
Yeah, I'm
Friday,
out
yeah.
Friday.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What's that?
The
Let's
following
talk
Monday?
about
Following Monday doesn't
Or
work.
load it up the following
29th.
Thursday.
I think the 29th, loading that up unless there's something
I could do the Monday.
time pressing. I can't do Monday. Time pressing, otherwise, I mean, we should be able to get to 2 weeks at least now.
Yeah, well, if we
Do we
get
have too
to-
many people coming in? Is that what it was, or?
No, if we get to the 29th, we can, we'll just make sure everybody's coming in for the budgets, which have to go to advisory
Yeah.
2 weeks later.
So a couple other things I want to be sure we get on a future agenda, whether it's the next one or not. An update on the GIC efforts, if any, because when we last discussed it, we said we were going to look into whatever. So if we can just have time to.
Yeah, we've made some
talk about
progress
that.
on that, too.
Yeah, so I look forward to hearing that. I would also, one of the other things I had asked for was to deal with, I don't know what I'd call it, communications responsiveness as relates to the example of the 40B down the road here, where the mass housing came and said, town of Sherborn, nobody responded to us within the 30-day period or whatever it was. And
Right,
I
so
just
we
wanted
did
to.
learn there were people at the site visit and so forth, so.
So I just want to, make sure we're on the same page of understanding what the opportunities are and how we, if any, and what we do to seize those
How
opportunities.
those are disseminated, yeah.
You know,
Yep.
so,
Well, just to second that, this board never voted to support any particular project.
That's right.
It was never.
right.
Never on an agenda, and yet we're recorded now as not opposing a project.
Yes.
Without any vote of this board, and that's troubling. When documents come in that require a deadline, it's like when you get served with a summons and complaint. I'm getting sued all the time now, being part of the state medical board. If you don't respond by a certain date, you're considered in default, and judgment can enter against you. And when papers come in and say the town of Sherborn has 10 days to respond or 20 days to respond to something, or else, that can't just be put in the file. It actually...
That's the discussion I want to have. Yeah.
We have it on the agenda for the 29th, but I think you should see all the information and all the sides before.
Yeah.
There was more
I just want,
to it than-
I just used one example of that. I was like, I didn't know that we had opportunity, and I didn't know that opportunity when it occurred, and here we are getting this thing from the state. So that's all I'm asking. The other thing, Paul, you had mentioned at a recent meeting when Ed was here about 4.6 million floating around there. I'd just like to know more about that at some future meeting if we can, whether that's, how liquid that money is.
It's not
if
floating
any.
around, there's an actual law that's passed, an appropriation.
Yeah, so I'd like to, if we could have a little brief agenda item on that, because that's pretty exciting.
Is that something you could update David on so he knows where it is and so forth?
Ed has been chasing it down, and
I think that when I talked to Ed, Ed was not quite certain where that was, so.
I believe he had a contact that we were trying to get something in
That's a
writing.
lot of money to not be able to find.
Well,
It's a statute, I can give them the
That'd be
site to
great.
this.
That'd be
Yeah,
helpful.
that's
That'd
great.
be really helpful.
That's great. That's all I
Okay.
had. Thank you.
I have nothing, except that we should enter into executive session. Mr. Taylor?
Give me 30 seconds.
Sure?
In 2 months, in March, we're going to have a caucus, and I believe this year there'll be 3 openings for selectmen. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
In 2 months, we'll have a caucus, and there will be 3 openings for selectmen, Mr. Taylor is pointing
So
out.
if there's any brave souls out there that might want to consider such a position, no attorneys, please, but...
For those of you who can't hear, Elliot just announced his
Well, we're on
campaign.
TV right now, and let it be known that there are going to be 3 selectmen openings at caucus and on the ballot. Thank you.
Very good, thanks, Elliot. And now,
I think we got to do
do we have to do that? We do. We've got a warrant in front of us, that was also on the agenda, and this is a warrant number 14 for $5,041.87.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, further discussion, all in favor? Aye. 3 ayes? Okay, good.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to read a motion to enter into executive session. I move that the Board of Selectmen enter into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, in Suffolk Construction versus DCAM, for discussion regarding possible litigation as it pertains to the health agent and litigation as it pertains to integrated paper. I declare that discussing this in public session may have a detrimental effect on the outcome, and the board will not return to public session. I need a second and a roll call vote.
Second.
Okay, motion seconded by Mr. Caruso. Now we'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Durensis?
Votes aye.
Mr. Caruso?
Aye.
And Mr. Jarmo, aye. Having passed by a vote of 3-0, the open session is now closed. We are in executive session, not to return to open session. Thank you.